Chapter 1485, Advancing to the Lesser Master God Tier Elementary Grade. Master God Tier Elementary Grade, King. The next day, in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Zhou Zhou was sitting cross-legged on the Enlightenment Futon of the Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Artifact and cultivating. 9-colored light appeared and disappeared on his body. One could vaguely see 9-colored words. These words surrounded Zhou Zhou. Coupled with his Emperor Dragon robe and his invincible aura, he looked like the Supreme Celestial Emperor. At this moment, Zhou Zhou suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! In the sky, wind surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The stars in the sky dimmed at this moment. Even the light emitted by the Supreme Star, the Sun Star and the Great Lunar Star, was much weaker at this moment. Only the Divine Kingdom stars of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom were as bright as the morning sun. Roar! The regal Sage Dao sword shot out from behind Zhou Zhou and shot into the starry sky. Halfway through its flight, it returned to its majestic regal dragon form. At the same time, with the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom as the core, it swam in the starry sky like a divine dragon protecting it. At this moment, the entire high continent and even the myriad worlds saw this shocking phenomenon. 10,000 star concealment, divine star exclusive light. A true God tier has advanced to a Master God tier. It's not as simple as advancing to the Master God tier. Can't you see that even the two supreme stars are willing to converge their light? There's also the phenomenon of the regal dragon patrolling the sky. A regal has advanced to Master God. A regal becoming a Master God tier. Isn't that the future Supreme God seed? Who is he? All the God spirits in the myriad worlds discussed in shock at this moment. At the same time, they were also curious about this regal who had advanced to Master God. They looked at the source of the advancement phenomenon and quickly discovered that it came from the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. When they saw this, they instantly understood. Among the regal existences in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, only the common people's regal who has already become the reserve army of the Supreme Lord should have advanced to the Master God. Ah! He is the Master God. And he's a Master God who just advanced. Then how did he use the strength of a true God tier to defeat all the races in the world in the past? You're kidding, right? Humph. How can an existence that can be recognized by the Supreme Will as the Fourth Supreme Lord Reserve Army be simple? What you see is the truth. This common people's regal, the current Supreme Lord Reserve, used the strength of a true God to forcefully defeat all the races and even forcefully defeated the 3 top bloodline races into slave races. If not for such a battle record, how could the Supreme Will end the Lord of all races event in advance and directly give the position of the Supreme Lord Reserve Army to him? Tisk. So the common people's regal is actually so terrifying. He destroyed 3 top races at the true God tier level and even killed a Supreme God existence. No wonder the Supreme Will gave the other party the status of a Supreme Lord Reserve in advance. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to let him continue to show off in the circle of lords of all races. Isn't that equivalent to putting a pure-blooded dragon in a group of rats? I was once one of the high-level lords of the myriad races. I was always unconvinced that Your Excellency common people's regal could obtain the Supreme Lord Reserve Army in advance. Now that I know the truth, I'm completely convinced. It turns out that Your Excellency common people's regal has already reached an indescribable level of strength. Fortunately, Lord Supreme Will ended the Lord of all races competition in advance. Otherwise, wouldn't I be dead for sure? Thank you, Lord Supreme Will. After knowing that Zhou Zhou had only just advanced to the Master God tier realm, all the former Lord of all races were shocked. Back then, the common people's regal was not even a Master God and he could sweep through all the races in the world. Now that Zhou Zhou had become stronger, what achievements would he obtain next? Could it be that the other party could really seize the true Supreme Lord position from the other 3 Supreme Lord Reserve Army that had been famous for a long time? This thought suddenly appeared in their minds. However, they quickly shook their heads and rejected it. The reputation of the three Supreme Lord Reserve Army had already spread in the myriad worlds for countless years. They did not believe that a Supreme Lord Reserve Army Junior who had just become a Master God could surpass them. The hope was too slim. More than an hour later, the phenomenon in the sky gradually disappeared. In the end, everything returned to normal. However, the shock this shocking phenomenon brought to the life forms of the myriad worlds made their hearts unable to calm down for a long time. At the same time, in the reincarnation sacred palace of the blazing sun divine capital, Zhou Zhou opened his eyes. He felt the chaotic sacred power at the Master God tier power boiling in his body, and a faint smile appeared on his face. With the vast amount of chaotic sacred power that I have just entered the Master God tier and the power given to me by the King, it should be much easier for me to control those supreme divine artifacts and use the supreme God tier law skills contained in them, right? Zhou Zhou smiled and muttered to himself. His current combat strength should be equivalent to that of a grade 3 supreme god after being able to completely control the highest grade 3 supreme god realm divine artifacts. Even though he could not win against a grade 4 supreme god without a supreme god divine artifact, he would not be much weaker. After letting the grade 2 void supreme god, Savas, join me yesterday, with the ability of a king in the power of a supreme god divine artifact, I now truly have the combat power of a grade 3 supreme god realm. It's not like in the past when there were no supreme god level subordinates. Just relying on the supreme god divine artifacts is still a little inferior to those true supreme gods. Zhou Zhou thought. The current me is enough to establish myself among the supreme gods. At this moment, Zhou Zhou was already filled with endless confidence. To gain a foothold among the supreme gods. These words were simple, but how many people could do it? Even most supreme gods could not do such a thing, but Zhou Zhou felt that he could. This was the confidence brought about by strength. Then, with a thought, the Law Skill King's attribute information appeared in front of him. Law Skill Name, King, Law Skill Quality, Master God Tier Elementary Grade, Introduction. As a true God Spirit on the Lord's Law Path, you can mark 50% of the territorial subjects and control everything they have, including appearance, bloodline, skills, weapons, law skills, and even illusory fate. When you control everything that the marked subject has, the subject doesn't have to suffer any negative effects. It's finally 100%. The current me can instantly control everything and everything about all the subjects under me. The common people are me. I am the common people. This is the ultimate profundity of a king. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself and a faint smile appeared on his face. Chapter 1486, Three Great Law Skills. Legendary Dragon, Undead Holy Dragon. Then, he looked at the effect of the Myriad Method Star Palm. The Myriad Method Star Palm was still his strongest law skill offensive method. The current Master God Tier Elementary Grade Myriad Method Star Palm could not only release Supreme God level attacks, but it could also absorb the attacks of Supreme God level enemies to strengthen itself, making it ready for attack and defense like before. Then, he looked at the two law skills. All the land in the world belongs to the king and seaside belongs to the king. Law Skill Name, all the land in the world belongs to the king. Law Skill Quality, Master God Tier Elementary Grade, Introduction to Law Skill Power. When you activate this law skill, the realm you are in will be your absolute law domain. No negative debuffs can be added to your body. Other than the higher level Lord Law Road God spirits, no one can interfere with the operation of your law domain. When you activate your nomological domain, you can crush all nomological domains of the same level. Even if it's a god on the Lord's Law path, as long as the other party doesn't comprehend a domain-type Lord Law skill, the other party will be suppressed by your domain and their strength will be greatly reduced. You can set up your domain rules in your law domain, and you can let it be temporarily preserved or permanently preserved, making it your 10 temporary/permanent exclusive territories. You can forcefully make a territory with the highest true God tier territory your territory every day through the Lord Law skill, the land of the king. After using it, you can't use it again on that day. Note, this Lord's Law skill can currently affect the coverage of a Master God tier regional territory. Law skill name, Land of Earth, a Minister of the King, Law skill quality, Master God tier elementary grade, Introduction to Law skill power. When you activate this Law skill domain, the living beings in the domain will be affected by your domain and quietly gradually change their thoughts and will. In the end, they will become subjects that submit to you from the bottom of their hearts. You can consume half of the chaotic sacred power in your body and instantly change the thoughts and will of the life forms in the domain, turning them all into subjects loyal to you. Currently, you can affect life forms below the true God tier advanced grade. Zhou nodded in satisfaction after reading it. As expected of the Lord's Law skill that he had painstakingly comprehended. The effects did not disappoint him at all. Then, he flipped his right hand, and Bodhi Supreme appeared in his palm. Bodhi Supreme. I want to ask a question. Who has the 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent of the God of Death, Thanatos? Zhou asked. A chance to answer an ordinary question. Sure. Zhou agreed without hesitation. The Lord Talent of the God of Death Thanatos 10 sacred blessings is on the God of Death Thanatos. Bodhi Supreme said. Isn't he completely dead? According to the reincarnation will, his divine soul and will have been destroyed by the netherworld will. There's nothing good on his divine body either. How can it still be on him? Zhou said in surprise. You're right, but what if he had made preparations for death when he was alive and had already arranged everything after his death, including the 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent you want? Bodhi Supreme asked. Zhou was even more surprised. I'll give you an address. You'll know when you see it. With that said, an illusory map slowly appeared in front of Zhou. One of the places was marked with a special red dot, indicating its specialness. Here. Surprise flashed across Zhou's eyes. He thought for a moment and nodded. All right, I'll go in a while. Then, he flipped his right hand and put the Bodhi Supreme into his first treasure vault. He was not in a hurry to find the God of Death, Thanatos. Instead, he came to Mugu first and obtained the Supreme God Realm Soldier recruitment books from the 32 capital units, the Supreme Holy Mage God recruitment books from the 32 capital units, and the World Ring that contained a large number of the Scarlet Broodmother's loots. Then, he came directly to the Gate of Summoning. He first called for an eternal battleship of the Master God tier advanced grade, then threw all the recruitment books in. Finally, he spent 100 intermediate true God tier divine crystals to recruit all of them in one go and arranged them on this eternal battleship. Then, he opened the original Dragon Abyss interface and spent 100 intermediate true God tier divine crystals to summon 66,666,660 pure, blooded dragons. He also placed them in the eternal mothership. Then, he carefully observed these dragons and was pleasantly surprised to discover that there was a pure-blooded dragon among these pure-blooded dragons. This pure-blooded dragon was called the Undead Divine Dragon. It was a legendary dragon with the power of light and the power of death. If this happened to other life forms, even pure-blooded dragons would explode and die because of the conflicting attributes. However, not only did this not happen to this legendary dragon, but on the contrary, after perfectly controlling the opposite laws of these two attributes, the undead divine dragon had extremely powerful strength. It was even enough to make his strength rank in the top 10 among all the legendary dragons. Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. There were all kinds of strange things in the vast myriad worlds. He spent another 100 intermediate true God tier divine crystals to recruit today's new subject after a simple conversation with the undead divine dragon. In the end, he recruited more than 460 million new subjects today. He summoned more than 30 million new subjects than usual, including the 13 true God-tier intermediate grade God spirits. Looking at these subjects, the weakest of whom was an extraordinary tier elementary grade, Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. He really liked the mythical tier Lord Talent, Heavenly Summoning, more and more. Even though it did not seem to have much potential, it was simply maxed out in terms of practicality. If he had the chance to advance to the Supreme Unique Lord Talent in the future, he could also think of it. At this moment. Boom, 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 boom. A total of 392 nomological pillars of various colors soared into the sky from the direction of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he smiled again. Another true god had advanced to the Master God tier realm. Moreover, nearly 400 Master Gods had advanced at the same time. Even though such a grand occasion could not be said to be unprecedented, it could at least be said to be unprecedented. At the same time, the god spirits of the myriad worlds saw this scene. They were all dumbfounded. If the 36 true gods had advanced at the same time yesterday, it was only challenging the upper limit of their imagination. In that case, the 392 true gods today had really exceeded their imagination when they advanced to Master Gods at the same time. It could even be said to have shattered their worldview. What is going on? When have Master Gods ever been born so easily? Nearly 400 Master Gods were born at once. Even pigs did not dare to give birth like this. Chapter 1487, The 1,000 Capital Units Army. Nearly 400 true gods had become Master Gods at the same time. This phenomenon that was enough to alarm the myriad worlds lasted for more than 2 hours before gradually dissipating. Before this, these god spirits who had successfully advanced had already arrived in front of Zhou Zhou. They said gratefully and respectfully in unison, "Greetings, Your Majesty." X392, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving us the inheritance to advance to Master God tier." X392. The 392 Master Gods stood around Zhou Zhou. Every god spirit had a look of deep gratitude on their faces. The difficulty of attaining Master God was ridiculously high. Even if one's potential was that of a Master God tier advance grade, one might not necessarily be able to become a Master God tier. If one really relied on one's own hard work, one would definitely have to go through a lot of twists and turns. However, with His Majesty's help, they had actually advanced to the Master God in such a short period of time without any surprises or dangers, becoming clan-protecting experts whose names shook the myriad worlds. They did not even dare to think about such a thing in the past, yet it was actually happening to them. How could they not be grateful to His Majesty? Stand up, all of you. Zhou Zhou looked at the 392 Master Gods in front of him with a smile. The number of Master Gods had always been his weakness. He had only risen for a short period of time after all. No matter how strong he was and how much Lord Talent he had, it was impossible for he to produce a large number of Master Gods out of thin air in a short period of time. However, he felt that he didn't need to worry anymore. With a battlefield like the ultimate void battleground where god spirits were everywhere and true god tiers were inferior to dogs, as long as he did not slack off, he would definitely be able to create a large number of god spirits, true gods, master gods, and even supreme god-level powerhouses in a short period of time. No wonder the Lord of 10,000 Evils has so many master gods under his command. He even has more than 5 supreme gods. I've been in the ultimate void battleground for so many years. It's normal for me to accumulate so much wealth. Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. He arranged for them to participate in the celebration of their promotion to Master God tonight without further thought. Then, they would be divided into 2 groups. One group would return to Fengluo's main army and continue the expansion of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's territory. The other group would naturally be sent back to the ultimate void battlefield. God spirits who had already entered the ultimate void battleground would not be affected after their advancement. Therefore, Zhou Zhou was not worried that they would not be able to return to the ultimate void battleground after their advancement due to their different strength. Then, he came to the Lord's shop as usual. As expected, 3 Master God tier treasures appeared in the Lord's shop this time. To a Master God, these 3 Master God tier treasures might be very good. But to Zhou Zhou, it was just a little bit more interesting. He bought these 3 Master God treasures and returned to the Reincarnation Sacred Palace. Then, he first used the doppelganger technique to create his nth clone and named it Zhou 11. Then, he said to him, Little 11, go to the God of Death temple later and help me see if God of Death Thanatos is dead or alive. Also, try your best to find the last 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent I want. Zhou Zhou instructed. Zhou 11 nodded and unhappily said, the work is fine, but can you not add the little in front of 11? 11 is 11. What's little 11? Zhou Zhou smiled. This clone was incarnated from his straightforward personality, so it was normal for him to have such requests. Okay, 11. Zhou Zhou nodded. Little 11 nodded in satisfaction, then turned into a stream of light and flew away. At the same time, just as Zhou 11 flew away, Blazing Sun Divine Capital's Zhou Marshal also began to prepare his army. After the addition of 64 capital units Supreme Soldier types and 66,666,666,660 pure-blooded dragons, the total number of troops under he had reached 1,008 capital units 2,641,307,779,532 soldiers, 1,473,114,720 god spirits, 162,473 true gods, and 914 master gods. Zhou Marshal looked at the army in front of him and nodded in satisfaction. An army calculated in capital units. I've finally reached this number. Previously, the total military strength of the 3 top bloodline races combined was only this number. He muttered. Of course, the number of ordinary soldiers alone had reached the total number of the 3 top bloodline races combined. However, there was still a long way to go in terms of the number of god spirits, true gods, and master gods. Zhou Marshal was not discouraged. His main body could now reach this level in terms of the number of ordinary soldiers. In the future, in terms of the number of god spirits, they would not be inferior to the alliance army of the 3 top bloodline races. Regarding this point, he was very confident and believed in it. Following that, he led the army and boarded an eternal battleship. Then, he directly passed through the Shadow World and arrived at the Chaos Sea. He flew to the agreed place with the chaotic divine demons. Zhou Marshal saw a large group of chaotic divine demons gathered below as soon as they arrived. There were 35 of them, and they seemed to have been waiting for a long time. The chaotic divine demons were among them. At this moment, he was conversing with a few other chaotic divine demons. When Zhou Marshal saw the other party and these chaotic divine demons, a smile appeared on his face. This chaotic divine demon is quite reliable. He is not a braggart. He muttered to himself. Then, he made the eternal battleship deactivate its invisibility and reveal its body, allowing it to appear in front of these chaotic divine demons. These chaotic divine demons quickly saw this Master God tier cosmic battleship that had suddenly appeared. Many of them were shocked, and some chaotic divine demons even wanted to escape. However, under the comfort of the chaotic divine demon, they finally realized that this was the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's cosmic battleship. Only then did they relax a little. However, they were cautious by nature and were prepared to retreat at any time. At this moment, Zhou Marshal and a team of 20 low-level final guards flew down from the Eternal Warship and arrived in front of him. Greetings, Your Majesty. The Spacetime Chaotic Divine Demon brought 3 chaotic divine demons with different appearances to Zhou Marshal and said respectfully. Greetings, Your Excellency Common People's Regal, X3 The three chaotic divine demons said politely. Zhou Marshall nodded and looked at the three chaotic divine demons with interest. Your Majesty, I'll introduce you. The spacetime chaotic divine demon immediately pointed at the chaotic divine demon on the left and said, This is Wind Ancestor chaotic divine demon, the master god who walks the path of the laws of wind. This is the Ghost Shadow chaotic divine demon. A master god who walks the path of the Yin Ghost Law and the Shadow Law. And lastly, he is a space chaotic divine demon. He is a master god who purely walks the path of the law of space. He is also my god brother. They are all chaotic divine demons who have the ability to bring chaotic divine demons out of the divine demon realm. All of them brought some chaotic divine demons over today. I only know these three at the moment, but in the future, I will definitely understand more about the divine demon realm and strive to bring more chaotic divine demons with similar abilities. Chapter 1488, One Palm. Shocking the Gods. Well done. Zhou nodded. Then, with a wave of his right hand, he saw a total of 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals floating at the side. They piled up like a small mountain, emitting the divine power fluctuations of a Master God Tier that made space and time tremble crazily. When the chaotic divine demons present saw this scene, their eyes widened and they held their breaths in disbelief. This was 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals. Normally, it would take at least dozens of Master Gods to drop it. His Excellency, the common people's regal, even looked like these didn't matter. What did this mean? What was he doing? Was he going to reward them? But they hadn't done anything yet. The spacetime chaotic divine demon looked at the 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals with bloodshot eyes. The fire in his eyes was like an active volcano that was about to explode. This was because the 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals in front of him were not only divine crystals, but also divine crystals that were extremely compatible with his nomological path. If these divine crystals were given to him, and he could digest and use them all, he would definitely be able to take a big step on the path to becoming a supreme god. Even though he would not be able to become a supreme god just by relying on divine crystals, he would at least be closer to that goal. What is His Majesty trying to do? Could His Majesty have not enough Master God Tier divine artifacts, so he is using Master God Tier divine crystals to replace them? After the spacetime chaotic divine demon calmed down, this thought appeared in his mind. At this moment, Zhou's calm voice sounded. Spacetime chaotic divine demon, your recommendation is meritorious. This emperor will reward you with these 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals. Continue to work hard in the future. This emperor has everything you want, even things you can't imagine. He said in a deep voice. The spacetime chaotic divine demon was stunned. These 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals were actually all for him. What came at random was ecstasy. He immediately knelt down and respectfully said, Thank you for the reward, Your Majesty. One will definitely do my best in the future and contribute more to His Majesty. I won't let His Majesty down. Okay. The other chaotic divine demons looked at the spacetime chaotic divine demon with envy and jealousy. These 10,000 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals were almost equivalent to 10 Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. This spacetime chaotic divine demon had clearly only brought chaotic divine demons to His Majesty for the second time. Furthermore, he had only introduced 3 chaotic divine demons who had the ability to leave the divine demon realm. Yet His Majesty had bestowed him with such a generous reward. Isn't this spacetime chaotic divine demon too lucky? If only I could. When these chaotic divine demons saw that the spacetime chaotic divine demon had earned so many Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals, they could not help but be tempted. These divine crystals were too easy to earn, right? Zhou Marshall watched this scene quietly and did not deliberately say anything. The seed of him making a fervent quest for talent. It was time to see what kind of fruit it could bear. Then, he looked at the 3 chaotic divine demon master gods. How many chaotic divine demons have you brought over? Zhou Marshall asked. I brought 7 chaotic divine demons. The wind ancestor chaotic divine demon said. I brought 5. The ghost shadow chaotic divine demon said. I brought 9. The space chaotic divine demon said. Zhou Marshall nodded, feeling very satisfied. Even though they did not bring as many as the spacetime chaotic divine demons, they were not much less. This was especially true for the space chaotic divine demon. He was only 1 step inferior to the spacetime chaotic divine demon. As expected of the god brother of the spacetime chaotic divine demon. This emperor has seen all of your actions. What do you want? Zhou Marshall asked. Master God Tier Divine Artifact, X3. The 3 god spirits said almost at the same time. Zhou Marshall nodded. Then, he waved his right hand, and the 3 world rings appeared in front of him. After the 3 chaotic divine demons received them, they entered the rings with their divine senses. When they saw the 6 Master God Tier divine artifacts that were compatible with them, they couldn't help but be delighted. Thank you, Your Majesty. The space chaotic divine demon put away the world rings and thanked him respectfully. This agent job that big brother he introduced could really earn divine artifacts. Wind Ancestor Chaotic Divine Demon and Ghost Shadow Chaotic Divine Demon also reacted when they heard this. They hurriedly put away the world rings and thanked him respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. It's just a normal transaction. There's nothing to thank me for. If you can bring more chaotic divine demons over in the future, this emperor can give you Master God Tier divine artifacts, Master God Tier divine crystals, and even the Supreme God Tier inheritances. The prerequisite is that the emperor is satisfied with the chaotic divine demons you brought. Lastly, this emperor will remind you that this emperor doesn't need an unlimited number of chaos divine demons. Perhaps I won't accept them anymore one day. If you don't get what you want by then, don't blame this emperor for not reminding you. Zhou Marshall said calmly. The 3 chaotic divine demons were very excited when they heard the encouragement. Not only were there rewards for Master God Tier divine artifacts and Master God Tier divine crystals, there were even Supreme God Tier inheritances. The spacetime chaotic divine demon had never mentioned this. The inheritance of the Supreme God was considered an extremely precious inheritance in the divine demon realm. Even though they were all top Master God Tier, it was extremely difficult to obtain the inheritance of a Supreme God level God Spirit. They did not expect to be able to obtain it from the common people's regal, and it did not sound too difficult. And when they heard the second half of the sentence, they immediately panicked. If it was limited, wouldn't they be unable to obtain the Master God Tier divine artifact or even the Supreme God Tier inheritances that Zhou Marshall mentioned? The 3 god spirits looked at each other and their eyes instantly became firm. They had to bring more chaotic divine demons over before the other party needed the chaotic divine treasure. They had to strive to accumulate enough credit so that they could exchange for the Supreme God Tier inheritances. Master God Tier divine artifacts and Master God Tier divine crystals didn't seem to be that important compared to the Supreme God Tier inheritances. After Zhou Marshall gave them the Master God Tier divine artifact, he ignored them. His gaze landed on the 31 chaotic divine demons not far away. Everyone, you should know this emperor's conditions, right? This emperor used 4 Master God Tier divine artifacts to exchange for the Chaos divine artifacts in your bodies. You can withdraw if you have any objections now. Zhou Marshall said in a deep voice. The chaotic divine demons did not speak. Seeing this, Zhou Marshall didn't waste any more time. He directly threw out a total of 124 Master God Tier divine artifacts and flew in front of each chaotic divine demon. After these chaotic divine demons obtained and handed these Master God tier divine artifacts to the spacetime chaotic divine demons to preserve, Joe Marshall directly used the myriad method Star Palm to slap them to death. This scene stunned the 4 spacetime chaotic divine demons. Are you sure that the common people's regal only has the power of Master God? The Wind Ancestor chaotic divine demon gulped. I think so. Even the spacetime chaotic divine demon wasn't sure. Think so my A*S. The Wind Ancestor chaotic divine demons cursed in their hearts. This palm strike had directly killed 31 top-notch Master Gods. Furthermore, looking at the other party's casual expression, it was obvious that he had not used his full strength. This was definitely the combat power of a supreme god, okay? At the thought of this, they looked at Joe Marshall with even more shock and awe. They did not expect that this Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army had unknowingly gained the strength of Supreme God. How long had he cultivated for? Who would believe this? Chapter 1489, The God of Death Thanatos. 1. Joe Marshall could not help but nod in satisfaction when he saw that he had killed 31 Master God tier advanced grade chaotic divine demons with a single palm strike. It was absolutely impossible for him to have such shocking power with a casual palm strike before he wore the supreme divine artifact previously. However, he was able to do it without a supreme divine artifact. His strength had indeed undergone a tremendous change after advancing to the Master God tier elementary grade. He already had such strength at Master God tier elementary grade. What about when he reaches Master God tier intermediate grade, Master God tier advanced grade, or even the Supreme God tier? Would he be able to match a will level existence? Joe Marshall could not help but think. Match a will level existence. If he could really reach that level, he would be considered a true expert in the Supreme Great Cosmos or even the Scarlet Great Cosmos. At that time, he would be qualified to fight to the death against any enemy, even if it was the supreme will of the Crimson Overlord. Unlike what he was currently facing, with no confidence to face a will-level existence at all. He didn't think too much about it. Joe Marshall raised his hand and sucked the corpses of these chaotic divine demons over. Then, he extracted all their loots with a thought. Joe Marshall obtained a total of 160 chaos divine treasures after using the great explosion on one of the corpses. Looking at the small pile of chaos divine treasures in front of him, Joe Marshall could not help but smile. He already had 176 chaos divine treasures on him. He could upgrade his territory with the addition of 24 chaos divine treasures. Not only had he gathered them, he also had 136 chaos divine treasures. Not bad. Joe Marshall was very satisfied. Your Majesty, I'll take my leave. I'll definitely bring more chaotic divine demons for you next time. The spacetime chaotic divine demon took the initiative to say. The Wind Ancestor chaotic divine demon hurriedly made a promise. Now that they had tasted the sweetness, they naturally wanted to continue. Joe Marshall nodded. Seeing this, the spacetime chaotic divine demon opened the door to the divine demon realm and left together. When Joe Marshall saw this, he boarded the Eternal Battleship again and instantly returned to Blazing Sun Divine Capital through the Shadow World. On the other side, in front of the God of Death Temple. Joe 11 looked at the temple in front of him. The current God of Death Temple had been renovated many times, unlike the previous God of Death Temple. The area it occupied was thousands of times larger than before. There were more than 10,000 attendants alone. The various renovation buildings were also extremely exquisite, and there was no lack of God-tier buildings. This place was directly upgraded from the Death God Temple to the God of Death Temple after the arrival of the Death God. Every day, many God of Death believers from other countries come here to worship and increase their worship. Hence, this place also became a famous scenic spot in the Divine Kingdom. Still, It was different from the peak of the past. Even though there were still many believers worshipping in the god of death's temple, Zhou 11, who had extremely sharp senses, could still sense an atmosphere of sunset from this temple. His heart sank. It seemed like the god of death, Thanatos, had most likely died. Otherwise, the god of death temple wouldn't have given him such a feeling. He walked into the god of death temple alone. The surrounding believers and attendants seemed to not see him. After arriving at the god of death temple, Zhou 11 looked up at the human death god statue that was more than 10,000 meters tall. The god of death, Thanatos, did not have a fixed form, so this statue of the god of death was created with humans as the model. However, this did not affect the faith of the god of death. On the contrary, as the human race gradually walked onto the stage of the various races, more and more god of death believers felt that the image of the god of death should be like this. Zhou 11 looked at the statue of the god of death and felt the power of the laws of death lingering on it. He frowned and muttered to himself, "Thanatos, since you already had a premonition of your death, why did you court it? Is there a reason why you have to go to the netherworld will?" In the holy temple, the statue of the god of death, Thanatos, quietly looked at Zhou Marshall, who was deep in thought. The surrounding believers, travelers, and waiters could not see this scene at all. Right at that moment. "Common people's regal, you're here." A weak voice sounded in Zhou Marshall's mind. Zhou Marshall's expression changed slightly as he looked at the statue of the god of death, Thanatos. The next second, he transformed into a 9-colored stream of light and rushed into the statue of the god of death, Thanatos. In the statue's inner world, a 9-colored stream of light descended from the sky and landed in this dark purple world. Then, it transformed into Zhou Marshall's figure. Zhou Marshall's gaze focused on a transparent black-robed figure in the distance after he landed. The black-robed figure emitted a will-like light realm will fluctuation, but this will fluctuation was very weak, as if a blown candle could be extinguished at any time. The next second, he turned around, revealing his face. Zhou Marshall's gaze froze. This was because this face was exactly the same as the human statue of the god of death, Thanatos. "Thanatos," Zhou Marshall said. "The god of death Thanatos greets the common people's regal, the Supreme Lord Reserve Army." Thanatos said respectfully. "What's the matter with you?" Zhou Marshall looked at the other party's transparent black robe. "My body of will soon dissipate between heaven and earth." Thanatos smiled. "What the hell is going on? How did you end up like this?" Zhou Marshall asked with a frown. "Does your excellency, the common people's regal, know that the netherworld will betray the supreme will and join the illusionist clan?" Chapter 1490, God of Death Thanatos, 2, Thanatos asked. "I do." Zhou Marshall nodded. This surprised Thanatos. However, he understood why when he thought about the other party's status as a reserve army of the Supreme Lord. "I happened to discover the betrayal of the Netherworld will. The Netherworld will felt that I would leak the secret, so it summoned me over to kill me. Fortunately, as the Master God tier of death, I'm naturally sensitive to death, especially my own death. I had foreseen my calamity a long time ago and knew that I would die in this calamity. I just didn't expect the existence designed to be a top-notch willpower level existence. I can't resist even if I want to in the face of the Netherworld will. I can't escape even if I want to." Thanatos sighed. He then went on to state, "So after I predicted the calamity in my life, I forcibly separated a portion of my will in advance and stored it here. Until now, when I see you again." At this point, Thanatos smiled and sighed. "Your Excellency is indeed the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army. Your luck is not inferior to a will-level existence. With the protection of your luck, my incomplete win was actually not discovered by the Netherworld will and has survived until now. I should like to thank you for that alone. Then the reason why my god spirits can still be resurrected with your Excellency's ability is because It's because I placed my intrinsic divine artifact, the Death Scepter, here. This intrinsic divine artifact is a Master God Tier Advanced Grade divine artifact. It itself has the ability to revive the undead. Coupled with some rules and regulations I specially set up to revive the dead, this place has become a device that can help your gods revive. However, the Faith Divine crystals that should be given still have to be given every month. This intrinsic divine artifact of mine and the law of resurrection that I set require Faith Divine crystals to be used as a power source. Joe Marshall nodded and looked at his transparent wool body. Your Excellency doesn't look too good. Thanatos was speechless. He shook his head and smiled warmly. It's already an incomplete body of will. It's already very lucky for me to be able to survive until now. Perhaps in a day or two, my will completely fall. However, I'm the Master God Tier of Death. I've long seen through life and death. It's my fortune to be alive, but it's my fate to die. I've tried, but fate is like this. The world is indeed beautiful, but I can let go of them now. Joe Marshall looked at the god of death Thanatos thoughtfully. This wasn't the first time he had met him. However, he felt that this Thanatos was very different from the previous Thanatos that he had met. He had a vague guess. This time, Thanatos was about to experience true life and death. Perhaps after experiencing this calamity, he had already seen through something and had a new understanding of life and death. That was why he gave off a different feeling from before. This Master God Tier of Death is not simple. Right at that moment, Bodhi Supreme's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. What do you mean? Joe Marshall asked calmly. After this calamity, he is about to completely comprehend life and death. Give him some time. When he completely perfects his nomological laws and forms a complete supreme nomological great Tao, he might be able to advance to the postnatal regal realm and use this fate to advance to the supreme god level. But he doesn't have much time left. I'm afraid that before he completely comprehends life and death, his body of will won't be able to withstand the corrosion of time and will directly perish. Bodhi Supreme said. Can't a body of will exist forever? Why is his body of will so fragile? Joe Marshall said in surprise. A complete body of will can naturally exist eternally, as long as the universe. However, he is not a complete body of will, but an incomplete body of will. The will is incomplete, as if a part of an ordinary person's soul has disappeared. At best, they will have no lack of memories, at worst, they will not live long. That's what happened in Thanatos. Just as he said, he doesn't have much time left. It will only be for the next few days. Bodhi Supreme said. In other words, as long as he has enough time, he can be promoted to a supreme god. Joe Marshall asked. Yes. Joe Marshall thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. How long will it take for him to become a supreme god? He immediately asked secretly. 3 days. However, in this fellow's state, he can at most last 2 days. In 2 days, he will definitely die. Bodhi Supreme said with extreme certainty. Then, he seemed to guess something and said, Don't tell me you want to tell he about this and then give him a treasure to delay the survival of his will so that he can last until the day he advances to the supreme god. Let me warn you first. The state of mind is extremely unstable. It's fine if you don't tell him. He might be able to maintain this state of mind steadily and even have a chance of breaking through. However, once you tell he and let he know that there's hope for him to live, he might destroy this state of mind in his joy. When that time comes, he won't be able to become a supreme god and you'll lose your treasures. You'll be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I see. Joe Marshall replied secretly before his gaze landed on Thanatos again. He thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, Your Excellency Thanatos, I have a treasure that can delay the dissipation of your will. Even though this can only delay the survival of your will for another day, it can be considered this emperor's repayment to your excellency for reviving the god spirits of our army during this period of time. Consider it your emperor. How about sending your excellency on your way? There's no need. How precious is a treasure that delays the survival of the will? There's no need to use it on a dying god like me. I appreciate your excellency's kindness. Thanatos shook his head. Your excellency, please accept it. Otherwise, this emperor will have regrets. Zhou Marshal shook his head. Thanatos pondered for a few seconds before nodding. Thank you for your kindness, your majesty. Let me see the world for one more day. This treasure should be what your excellency wants, right? I'll also give it to your excellency. Please accept it. Thanatos reached out and saw a crystal ball emitting black fog flying towards Zhou Marshal. Zhou Marshal raised his hand and took it. He realized that it was the only mythical tier Lord Talent sphere. He took a closer look. It was the 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent sphere of the god of death, Thanatos. This is exactly what this emperor needs. Zhou Marshal said. As long as it's useful to his majesty. Thanatos smiled. Zhou Marshal nodded and said, this is the divine item this emperor mentioned that can restore some of my willpower. I'll leave it to your excellency. Goodbye. Zhou Marshal smiled. Then, he took out a Master God tier advanced grade treasure called the God Nurturing Root and handed it to Thanatos. Then, he bade farewell and left this world of will. After Zhou Marshal left, Thanatos looked at the floating nurturing god root in front of him and could not help but laugh. This common people's regal was really as he had said. He was someone who cared about the common people. Even if he was a deity that was about to fall, he was not stingy with bestowing treasures to show his benevolence. Bring me the faith divine crystals and I'll help you revive. This is just a fair deal. Where's the extra reward? However, since it's a gift from a good friend, there's no harm in trying it. It'll make me miss this beautiful world for another day. Thanatos smiled, but his eyes were filled with nostalgia. Even though he had already seen through life and death, it was precisely because he had seen through life and death that he felt that this world was so beautiful. Perhaps the world in Tritus' eyes is what I see now. Thanatos seemed to have understood something. Then, he smiled and swallowed the nurturing god root in front of him into his divine body. After swallowing it, his body of will quickly condensed. However, this condensation effect only allowed he to exist in this world for a day. However, even so, Thanatos was already very satisfied. What a pleasant surprise. The blazing sun divine capital. At this moment, Zhou Marshal had already returned through the shadow world. He looked in the direction of the god of death temple and muttered to himself, I've given you your chance. If it works, everything will naturally be fine. If it doesn't, just treat it as this emperor really sending you off. After saying that, he returned to the reincarnation sacred palace to meet Zhou. Chapter 1491, The Last 10 Sacred Blessings Lord Talent. Easter egg. Zhou was feeling the lower limit of the human race's potential in the reincarnation sacred palace. Previously, the potential of the human race had already reached the epic tier advanced grade. Moreover, they only needed 34 more new master gods to officially advance to the lower limit of the legendary tier elementary grade. Today, there were 392 new master god tiers. Even though there were only 176 new master god tiers among them, they far satisfied the need for the minimum potential of the human race to advance. As expected, I've already broken through. The lower limit of the human race's potential now is legendary tier intermediate grade. Zhou was very surprised when he sensed this. How was this the lower limit of the legendary potential? Under normal circumstances, with so many new Master God tiers of their race, it was completely enough to raise their potential to the low-tier deity level. This was how the original Spirit race, the Chaos Gods race, and the Shepherd's God race were like. However, why was it still only the lower limit of the legendary potential when it came to the humans? All sorts of thoughts flashed through Zhou Zhou's mind. Soon, a look of realization flashed across his face. Then, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He knew why. The reason why the three top-notch bloodline races could use more than 100 master gods of their own race to raise their potential to the level of a god spirit and promote themselves to a top-notch bloodline race was because the lower limit of their initial potential was very high. It was recorded in Zhou Zhou's original spirit race bloodline inheritance. The lowest potential of the oldest and most primitive spirit race members in the world had already reached the epic tier elementary grade. The most primitive clansmen of the Chaos Gods race and the Shepherd's God race had potential that had reached extraordinary tier advanced grade. As for the humans, before Zhou Zhou came, the lower limit of their potential was Black Iron tier elementary grade. It could be said to be the lowest among all races. This was the reason why the human race was evaluated as a mid-low grade bloodline race by the myriad races. As for why they were not the lowest race, it was because some races' citizens could not even reach the lower limit of the Black Iron tier elementary grade's potential and could not become superhumans in their lives. The high potential starting point of the three top bloodline races also made them not need much Master God tier to advance to the God Spirit level. For example, the human race needed a total of 50 new Master God tiers to advance from the lower limit of the Epic tier advanced grade to the lower limit of the Legendary tier elementary grade bloodline. However, the original Spirit race might only need 20 or even less to advance to the lower limit of the Legendary tier elementary grade. It was the same for the Chaos Gods race and Shepherd's God race. It was like a 100-meter race. Humans had to start from the beginning and run 100 meters to reach the finish line. In the end, they had to work themselves to death. As for the three top bloodline races, they stood at the 70, or even 80 meter mark from the beginning. They only needed to run the rest of the way to reach the finish line, and they were not very tired. This was the difference between the two sides. Zhou Zhou did feel a little uncomfortable at first after understanding this. No wonder it was so difficult for the lower limit of human potential to increase. His expression soon returned to calm. So what if it was difficult to improve? Hadn't he already forcefully raised the lower limit of human potential to the legendary level? Now, the lower limit of the human race's potential had been raised to the low-tier deity level elementary grade and they were only 2 steps away from becoming a top bloodline race. From legendary tier intermediate grade to legendary tier advanced grade. In the end, it advanced to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. This way, humans could become a top-notch bloodline race. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou sensed how many new Master God tiers of the human race were needed to raise the lower limit of the legendary potential to the lower limit of the legendary tier advanced grade. The lower limit of legendary level potential has been raised to 200 new Master God tiers. It's not much. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. He had 142 new Master God tiers of the human race. Another 58 new Master God tiers of the human race could raise the potential of the human race to the legendary tier advanced grade. There's a high chance that we can achieve this condition tomorrow. He said to himself with a smile. At this moment, Zhou 11 walked over and told Zhou Zhou about Thanatos. When Zhou Zhou heard that, he clicked his tongue. Thanatos' luck is really bad. He actually discovered the secret of the Netherworld will. No wonder, he died silently. Besides, you're doing well. Perhaps we can bring a new Supreme God Helper to our Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Zhou 11 waved his hand and did not really care. Then, he threw out his right hand and saw the Lord Talent Sphere emitting black fog being thrown over by him and caught by Zhou Zhou. After Zhou Zhou received it, he took a look and absorbed it. He opened his eyes in no time. He opened his Lord Talent interface and saw that there was a new mythical tier, unique Lord Talent. He looked carefully. More talent information appeared. F10 Sacred Blessings, Death Master God, Tears Protection by Thanatos, Specific Talent Effect 1, Supreme Blessing of Thanatos, the Death Master God, Thanatos, one of the 10 chief gods under the Supreme Will, has performed Supreme Blessing on you and the combat-type professionals under you. You and your combat-type professionals would not die immediately in battle. Instead, you will continue to fight in the form of the dead until 24 hours later before their souls return to the netherworld. Specific Talent Effect 2, Resurrection, you will continue to survive in the form of the dead for 24 hours after you and your combat-type professionals die in battle. During these 24 hours, if you or your subordinates kill the killer, you or your subordinates can absorb the life essence of the enemy to revive. Specific Talent Effect 3 Master God's Protection, the development process of your Lord's faction will not be hindered by other Master God level powerhouses. The Master God, Terrence, will secretly protect you and your Lord's faction, stopping or killing any Master God level powerhouses who dare to come and have malicious intentions. Specific Talent Effect 4, Guardian of the Divine Kingdom, when your Lord faction advances to beginner level Divine Kingdom Lord faction, the War God, Terrence will automatically join your Lord faction and become a loyal worshipper of your Master God. However, you have to promise him that you will help him advance to the Supreme God realm in the future. Note, as the Master God of Death, Thanatos, has fallen, the Specific Talent Effects 3 and 4 are no longer effective. Zhou's eyes lit up after reading it. God of Death Thanatos 10 Sacred Blessings Lord Talent was not bad. He could actually continue fighting as an undead after death. Moreover, if he killed the person he killed during this period, he could even revive by absorbing the life essence of the person he killed. The most terrifying thing was that this innate ability actually did not have a death restriction. In other words, if he could use this talent well, he could use it to create a terrifying undead army. At this moment, another line of text appeared. Supreme Will Notification, congratulations to Common People's Regal, Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, for gathering all the 10 Sacred Blessings Lord Talents. You have obtained a Supreme Unique Lord Talent, Protection of the Supreme Will. When Zhou saw the notification, his eyes lit up in excitement. One could actually trigger an Easter egg after gathering the Lord Talent of the 10 Sacred Blessings. Chapter 1492, Protection of the Supreme Will, Supreme Unique. Upgrade Territory. 1. Blessed by the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will is actually involved behind the collection of these 10 holy blessings. As expected of the 10 mythical tier Lord Talents I painstakingly collected. As expected, they didn't disappoint me. Zhou said happily. Then, with a thought, he opened the specific information of the 10 Sacred Blessings Lord Talent. Protection of the Supreme Will, Supreme, Unique, Specific Talent Effect 1, Blessing of the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will lamented the difficulty of collecting the Lord Talents of the 10 Sacred Blessings. Therefore, it specially bestowed a special reward blessing to the Lord Talents of the 10 Sacred Blessings. You and the subjects under your command, every life form has a basic understanding of the Lord's laws. When comprehending the laws, it's easier to delve into the essence of the laws and comprehend the Supreme Lord's laws. Specific Talent Effect 2, Supreme Will, you and your subjects' willpower talent has reached the supreme level. Compared to other life forms, it's easier to raise your willpower realm to the Will Divine Transformation realm. Specific Talent Effect 3, Supreme Heart, when you and your subjects advance to the Supreme God level, the probability of advancement will increase by 10%. When Zhou saw this Lord Talent, he could not help but hold his breath. Then, a burning passion appeared in his eyes. This protection of the Supreme Will was actually a Lord Talent that could help the subjects under him to comprehend the Lord's law and reduce the difficulty of advancing to Supreme God. This was simply too awesome. This was because most of his Lord talents were mythical tier. The maximum range he could affect was at the Master God tier. When the God spirits of Master God tier advanced grade become supreme gods, most of his Lord talents would not be of much use to the Master God tier advanced grade God spirits under him. With this supreme unique Lord talent, it would be much easier for the Master God tier advanced grade God spirits under him to become supreme gods. Furthermore, the subjects under him would have an easier time comprehending the Lord's law in the future and become connate regals. God spirits also had a chance of comprehending the Lord's law and becoming acquired regals. Connate regals and acquired regals would all have the basic qualifications to advance to the supreme God realm. In other words, this supreme unique Lord talent alone would bring him countless supreme God seeds in the future. The leaders of the 3 top bloodline races had racked their brains and even joined forces to deal with him. Apart from coveting his Supreme Lord Reserve Army, they weren't regals in the first place and wanted to use this method to obtain the opportunity to advance to the Supreme God level. The subjects under him would all have the chance to become supreme gods because of this supreme unique Lord talent. The original Master Gods would probably be filled with regret when they found out. If he had known that it was so simple, why would he have dealt with Zhou? Wouldn't he have just joined him? It turned out to be a total loss for him. There was one more thing. It was no exaggeration to say that as long as he was willing to release the information about this Lord talent, it was guaranteed that countless God spirits and ordinary life forms would crazily want to come to his kingdom and become his subject. That was a supreme God after all. A God spirit that truly transcended the myriad worlds and was high and mighty. Who could resist the temptation of becoming a supreme God? Furthermore, there were other Lord talents that increased the potential of the subject's talent in his kingdom, other than this supreme unique Lord talent. All of these could attract subjects and even God spirits from the outside world. Lastly, there might be 1 or 2 willpower level subordinates in the future if there were more supreme gods under him in the future. He had willpower level subordinates. Such a thing was unimaginable for most will level existences. And with Zhou having this Lord talent, it meant that there was a high chance that he would have willpower level subordinates in the future. This was even enough to make willpower level existences go crazy. This Lord talent is suitable for my current situation where I lack top-notch experts. Zhou thought in satisfaction. Right at that moment. Zhou 11, who was bored, asked. What do I do next? Zhou snapped back to his senses and closed the Lord talent information interface. He gestured at the mat beside he with his eyes and said, cultivate with me. I've absorbed a little too much of the Supreme God's inheritance in the past 2 days. I can't comprehend it alone. Okay. Zhou 11 nodded and sat beside Zhou before entering the time world to cultivate. Zhou thought for a moment and was not in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he called Zheng Yuanqi over and told he about the effect of the Supreme Unique Lord talent. As a member of the Supreme Lord Reserve Army, he no longer had to worry about the outside world knowing that he had many Lord talents. Therefore, Zheng Yuanqi was not surprised when he heard that His Majesty had gained another Lord talent. However, what made he ecstatic was that His Majesty's Supreme Unique Lord talent was actually so astonishing. It could actually allow the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to have a large number of Supreme God seeds in the future and allow Master God tier advanced grade God spirits to advance to the Supreme God level more easily. Once such an effect was released, it was enough to make countless God spirits go crazy. You can use this as a foundation to spread the news to the outside world. Come to this Emperor's Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to be a subject and worshipped God spirit. It will be easier for you to advance to the Supreme God level in the future. Zheng Yuanqi heard Zhou say just as this thought appeared in Zheng Yuanqi's mind. Chapter 1493, Protection of the Supreme Will, Supreme, unique. Upgrade territory. 2. There's no need to talk about the specific effects of the talent. Just say that it's easier to advance to the Supreme God level. Many thoughts flashed through Zheng Yuanqi's mind before he suddenly said respectfully, "I understand." Zhou Zhou nodded. The reason why he did not release the specific effects of the Lord Talent was very simple. It was because the effect of this Lord Talent was too shocking. It was even enough to make willpower level forces covet it. Therefore, he had to keep a low profile. When he became the leader of a Supreme God level faction in the future or had willpower level subordinates, there would be no need to hide it anymore. That would be the time to rely on this Lord Talent to develop wantonly. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou understood something else. No wonder every 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent required the possessor of the talent to help the 10 Master God tiers become supreme gods in the future. At that time, he was still thinking about what he would do if other 10 sacred blessings Lord Talent possessors were not like he, who had many supreme gods' divine inheritances. Now that he saw the supreme unique Lord Talent rewarded, he immediately understood. So the Supreme Will had already prepared the Lord Talent to help them advance to the Supreme God level. He only needed to collect all the Lord Talents of the 10 sacred blessings. Even though it was very difficult, once someone collected all of them, the rewards would be unimaginably high. After that, Zheng Yuanqi did not talk much and immediately went to settle this matter. Zhou Marshal also returned not long after Zheng Yuanqi left. "Here you go. I continued to lead troops to expand my territory." He directly handed the 160 Chaos Divine Treasures to Zhou Zhou before turning to leave. Zhou Zhou smiled and looked at Zhou 11, who was cultivating with his eyes closed. He flew out of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace and arrived above Blazing Sun Divine Capital. He flipped his right hand and saw 200 Chaos Divine Treasures appear in his hand. Then, he silently chanted in "Upgrade the territory." The next second, with 200 Gaia units of basic materials, 10,000 true God tier advanced grade divine crystals, 1 capital units origin crystal, 50 units of Chaos Divine Treasures, 200 units of Chaos Divine Treasures, and 10 true God tier advanced grade territory tokens disappeared. A text notification appeared. "Congratulations, your true God tier intermediate grade World of Gods, Lord's Law, has successfully advanced to true God tier advanced grade World of Gods, Lord's Law. Your territory has successfully upgraded to a true God tier advanced grade territory. Your true God tier intermediate grade All Methods Origin Array has been upgraded to true God advanced grade All Methods Origin Array. Durability of Territory Stone Tablet increased to 1 capital unit/1 capital unit. Your territory has expanded to 500 billion kilometers x 500 billion kilometers x 10 million kilometers. You have expelled all the fog monsters in the territory of the new territory. The scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, Mythical Tier Building Blueprint Treasure Chest, True God Tier Advanced Grade. Lord Talent Notification, your Scarlet Broodmother can be upgraded. Lord Talent Notification, your Mysterious Caravan has been upgraded. Lord Talent Notification, the strength of the clergy of your life arc has increased. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. He had finally advanced to a true God tier advanced grade territory. The highest level territory of all the Lord factions in the myriad worlds was only the territory of a true God tier advanced grade. Divine Kingdom Lord factions were at most high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions. There were no higher-level Lord factions. Even though supreme and willpower-level forces existed, they had relied on their strength to obtain the recognition of the outside world and become a supreme or willpower-level faction recognized by the outside world. It was not that their divine kingdoms had reached the level of a supreme god or a will. This was because the Supreme Will was not above the Divine Kingdom Lord faction to create a higher-level Lord faction. You're already at the peak of the infinite worlds. But I haven't become a Supreme Lord yet. Zhou Zhou said softly. Then, he was about to check the conditions for advancement to an advanced divine kingdom. However, at that moment, he suddenly thought of something. He took a deep breath and clicked on the next advancement requirement of the territory. He looked shocked because there really was one. Building upgrade, 200 Gai units of wood, 5,200 Gai units of thin sand, 200 Gai units of metal, 200 Gai units of stone, 1,000 Master God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals, 10 Capital Units Origin Crystals, 500 Chaos Divine Treasures, 3 Ultimate Void Crystals, 10 Lower Master God Tier Regional Territories, 10 Lower Master God Tier Elementary Grade God Spirits, 20 million Racial Heroes. My territory can actually be upgraded to Master God Tier Elementary Grade. When did it start? Does this mean that everyone in the universe can advance, or am I the only one who can? Does this mean that everyone in the universe can advance, or am I the only one who can? Right at that moment, a line of text from the Supreme Will silently appeared in front of him. Supreme Will notification, currently, only the promotion authority of Master God Tier territories and the promotion authority of Master God Tier countries are open to you. If you successfully advance, not only will you become the first territory owner to promote your territory to Master God Tier territories, but after you, the territory owners of other true God Tier territories will also open this authority. There will be a chance to become the territory owner of Master God Tier territories. From then on, there will be more and more territory owners of Master God Tier territories. Supreme Will notification, in other words, you will be the creator of the upper limit of all Master God Tier territory lords. History will truly remember you because of this. Zhou Zhou's mouth fell open. He understood how important this matter was without needing the Supreme Will to explain. It was no exaggeration to say that if he really became the creator of the territory's upper limit, his reputation in the myriad worlds would reach an unprecedented terrifying height. When the time came, even if he wasn't a willpower level powerhouse, or even a reserve Supreme Lord, his prestige was enough to make he not inferior to a true willpower level powerhouse. Lord Supreme Will, why have you bestowed this honor upon me? Zhou Zhou was puzzled. The Supreme Will could do such things on its own. Supreme Will notification, I don't need this. Supreme Will notification, in addition, you are one of the future successors I chose. I have to put a few layers of halos on you and let the living beings of the myriad worlds truly respect you, admire you, and worship you. Supreme Will notification, this way, you can successfully take over my supreme great cosmos in the future. Zhou Zhou was speechless after reading it. Do the other reserves get the same treatment I do? He asked curiously. Supreme Will notification, yes, but they're all inferior to you. Zhou Zhou grinned when he heard that. Thank you for the gift, Lord Supreme Will. I will definitely advance to a Master God Tier Elementary Grade territorial faction as soon as possible and let all the races know my name. Supreme Will notification, Zhou Zhou did not say anything else. Then, his gaze landed on the promotion requirements again. Soon, he noticed the requirements for 500 units of Chaos Divine Treasures and 3 units of Ultimate Void Divine Crystals. 500 units of Chaos Divine Treasures might sound like a lot, but I still have 136 Chaos Divine Treasures in my possession. I should be able to gather the remaining Chaos Divine Treasures in 2 to 3 days. As for the Ultimate Void Crystal, sounds familiar. After a few seconds of contemplation, Zhou Zhou suddenly thought of something. He stretch out his right hand, and a hexagonal dark purple crystal appeared in his hand. As soon as the hexagonal purple crystal appeared, it began to emit a shocking purple light. Any space that was illuminated by the purple light began to distort and transform into the ultimate void environment. With a thought, Zhou Zhou extracted the power of the dark purple crystal and restored the surrounding space to normal. He looked at the dark purple crystal. A text notification appeared. Item name, Ultimate Void Crystal, Item Level, Supreme Tier, Item Effect, distorts everything in the surrounding space and transforms it into an ultimate void creation. One ultimate void crystal can degenerate 100 boundless universes into an ultimate void world. Item description: the ultimate void crystal is a supreme treasure born in the ultimate void environment. The Void Emperor placed it in the Void Base Star Core and used it to pollute and transform the Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos. It's in the Base Star Core. Zhou Zhou was relieved to see this. As long as we know where it came from. Chapter 1494, Advanced Grade Divine Kingdom. Pet Dragon God of All Life. Zhou Zhou looked at the ultimate void divine crystals in his hand. This ultimate void divine crystals was naturally obtained from Kai's city's base star core. At first, Zhou Fight didn't pay much attention to it. He only thought that he was a pure pollutant, so he casually threw he into the number 1 treasure vault for collection. He did not expect this to be an important material that could be used to upgrade his territory. If one void base star core can produce one ultimate void crystal, doesn't that mean that I can gather 2 more ultimate void crystals, which is to conquer 2 void bases, and I can gather the conditions in this aspect? It's not hard. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. In that case, I've satisfied most of the conditions to advance to the Master God tier elementary grade. Only the Chaos Divine Treasure and the Ultimate Void Crystal are not satisfied. Yeah. In 3 days, I will definitely be able to upgrade my territory to Master God tier elementary grade territory. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then, he opened the requirements to upgrade the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom from an intermediate grade Divine Kingdom to an advanced grade Divine Kingdom. After the last upgrade, he had other things to do and had actually forgotten about this matter. Soon, the upgrade information appeared. Divine Kingdom name, Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, God Lord, Blazing Sun God Lord, Divine Kingdom level, Intermediate Grade Divine Kingdom flag, All Stars Cover the Sun, Divine Kingdom Army, Blazing Sun Army, True God Tier Advanced Grade, Monster Army, True God Tier Advanced Grade, Dragon God Army, True God Tier Advanced Grade, 10,000 Races Army, True God Tier Advanced Grade, Heavenly Map Army, True God Tier Advanced Grade, Homeland Defense Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, requirements to advance to an Advanced Grade Divine Kingdom, territory level to True God Advanced Grade, satisfied, Divine Capital level to True God Tier, satisfied, 1000 True God Advanced Grade Divine Crystals, satisfied, conquer 10 Crimson Overlords Intermediate Grade Divine Kingdom, 10 tenths, satisfied, conquer 5 intermediate grade divine kingdoms that are not under the Crimson Overlord. Satisfied, conquer 1 advanced grade divine kingdom lord faction and possess its true god. Advanced grade divine token, 1/1, satisfied, 100 million independent regional territories, 10,000 race heroes, satisfied, 3 race divine artifacts, satisfied. They were all satisfied. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly, not very surprised. With his current strength and faction, it would be strange if he still did not meet the requirements for advancement. Now that I'm satisfied, then let's just get promoted. He muttered to himself. Then, he chanted the advancement in his heart. The next second, a text notification appeared in front of him. Prompt: you have satisfied all the conditions to advance to an advanced grade divine kingdom. Do you want to advance the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to an advanced grade divine kingdom? Promotion. Zhou Zhou said. Prompt: you have one chance to change the location of God Capital. Do you want to change/reserve? Reserve. Prompt: your choice has been confirmed. Prompt: your Lord's Territory Intermediate Grade Divine Kingdom Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom is being upgraded. Prompt: advancement successful. Congratulations, your Intermediate Grade Divine Kingdom Lord Territory Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. You have officially advanced to Advanced Grade Divine Kingdom Lord Territory Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Prompt: you can show the level of your Divine Kingdom territory on any channel. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. He had finally advanced to advanced grade Divine Kingdom Lord faction. Now, he could be considered one of the top races and lords in the myriad worlds. Maybe we can get rid of the word one of. Right at that moment, a new text notification appeared in front of Zhou Zhou and resounded in the ears of all living beings in the myriad worlds. 10,000 Races Announcement. Congratulations to Lord of all Races Reserve, Lord of the Blazing Sun, for successfully upgrading your Divine Kingdom territory to an intermediate Divine Kingdom territory. Reward, Lord of all Races Reserve Treasure Chest +1, Intermediate Divine Kingdom Treasure Chest +1. Reputation Rating +10,000. Mythical Reputation Rating +100. All Races Announcement. Congratulations to the Supreme Lord Reserve Army, Lord of the Blazing Sun. All Races Announcement. Congratulations to the Supreme Lord Reserve Army, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Zhou Zhou smiled. He opened the battle channel of all races and the Lord's channel of all races. As expected, he realized that the Lords and God spirits of the myriad races were discussing the promotion of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to a high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction. The myriad spirit race congratulates the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army on becoming the Lord of an advanced grade Divine Kingdom. The immortal spirit race congratulates the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army on becoming the Lord of an advanced grade Divine Kingdom. The descendant of the God spirit race congratulates the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army on becoming the Lord of an advanced grade Divine Kingdom. Elemental race congratulates the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army on becoming the Lord of an advanced grade Divine Kingdom. Your Excellency Common People's Regal is indeed worthy of being the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army personally chosen by the Supreme Will. How long has it been and you've already raised your Divine Kingdom Lord faction to a high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction? From now on, Your Excellency, the Common People's Regal, can be considered the master of a top-notch Lord faction. Other than those supreme factions and willpower level factions, I want to see which Lord faction and race faction dares to pick on low-level Lord factions. It's just some gossip. When has the Supreme Lord ever bothered with them? That's true. Those who said these words are all clowns who can't be seen. What kind of situation is the Common People's Regal? They won't care about them at all. Your Excellency, Common People's Regal, has already been promoted to the Lord of an advanced grade empire. Your next goal should be to advance to an official Supreme Lord, right? I still think God King Heaven punishment is stronger. Chapter 1495, Advanced Grade Divine Kingdom. Pet Dragon God of All Life. The Lord of 10,000 Evils has guarded the ultimate void battlefield for so many years. He has contributed and worked even harder. The Supreme Will must have already set Lord of 10,000 Evils as the future Supreme Lord in his heart. Set in his heart. Do you know the heart of the Supreme Will? How do you know that the Supreme Will is sure that Lord of 10,000 Evils will become the Supreme Lord in the future? We, the Spring and Autumn Dharma Lords, have guarded the river of time for tens of thousands of years. If we wanted to be the Supreme Lords, then Lord of 10,000 Evils, the God King Heaven punishment, and that so-called Common People's Regal are nothing. All the lords of the myriad races were bragging about Zhou Zhou. As for the gods in the battle channel of the myriad races, they argued and even argued about who would become the Supreme Lord in the future because of the 4 Supreme Lord Reserve armies. Zhou Zhou watched with relish. The discussion of these god spirits revealed a lot of information. They believed that among the 4 Supreme Lord Reserve armies, Zhou Zhou, as the new Supreme Lord Reserve Army, was the least likely to advance to become a Supreme Lord in the future because his strength and faction were the weakest. The Spring and Autumn Dharma Lord came second. This was because the Spring and Autumn Dharma Lord had not appeared in front of the life forms of the myriad worlds for a long time. The Spring and Autumn Dharma Lord did not participate in the few meetings summoned by the Supreme Lord. Instead, he focused on guarding the river of time. As time passed, the life forms of the myriad worlds almost forgot about this second reserve of the Supreme Lord, as if the other party had really been buried by the river of time. The call for Lord of 10,000 Evils to become a supreme lord in the future was the second highest among the god spirits in the battle channel of the myriad races. As the other party was the leader of the ultimate void battlefield and often interacted with the gods of the battle channel of the myriad races, Zhou Zhou was not surprised that he had so many supporters. The call for Lord of 10,000 Evils to become a supreme lord in the future was the second highest among the god spirits in the battle channel of the myriad races. As the other party was the leader of the ultimate void battlefield and often interacted with the gods of the battle channel of the myriad races, Zhou Zhou was not surprised that he had so many supporters. This Supreme Lord Reserve Army was one of the 4 Supreme Lord Reserves. It was the most popular to become a Supreme Lord and had the most supporters. According to the gods of the 10,000 Races combat channel, the God King Heaven Punishment had already become a Supreme Willpower Realm expert a long time ago and was on par with other willpower level existences. He was the only willpower level existence in the reserve army of the 4 Supreme Lords. In addition, what he was doing now was to resist the invasion of the illusionary race together with the Supreme Will. Powerful. Then, he followed beside the Supreme Will and fought alongside the 10,000 races. He also knew many will-level existences. Among these will-level existences, there were definitely some will-level existences who were already his supporters. Coupled with the reason that the other Zhou Zhou and these god spirits might not know, it was no wonder that God King Heaven Punishment had the highest number of voices and supporters among the god spirits. However, even though God King Heaven Punishment was very famous, Zhou Zhou was not very worried. Even though the God King Heaven Punishment indeed had the most supporters and was the strongest in strength and faction, since the Supreme Will did not choose the other party and continued to choose the second, third, and the fourth Supreme Lord Reserve Army, it proved that he was at least a little dissatisfied with this successor. It was precisely because of this that the Supreme Will chose the other 3 Supreme Lord Reserve Army and let Zhou Zhou and the others compete with the God King Heaven Punishment. Therefore, Zhou Zhou knew that even though he was the weakest in terms of strength and faction, he might have a chance to fight for the Supreme Lord position in the future. He stopped thinking about it. Zhou Zhou closed the Lord channel and the battle channel of the myriad races and began to check these rewards. The first was naturally the Supreme Lord Reserve Treasure Chest. After he opened the Supreme Lord Reserve Treasure Chest, he realized that there was a statue of the Dragon God inside. This statue was the size of a palm. Its divine body was muscular and its entire body was golden. It had 18 golden wings on its back and a dragon head. It had a dignified dragon appearance and a golden crown on its head. In addition, his tail was very long. The end was in the shape of a short golden blade, looking extremely sharp. What attracted Zhou Zhou's attention the most was that the scales on the surface of the Dragon God statue actually revealed mirror images of worlds. Zhou Zhou could even see the joy, anger, sorrow, and even life and death of the life forms inside these scale worlds. What kind of dragon statue is this? Zhou Zhou said in surprise. Right at that moment, a text notification appeared. Treasure name, Dragon God of all life, treasure grade, special, treasure effect. After the will acknowledges the owner, the Dragon God of all life will become the owner's pet and follow the owner for the rest of its life. Treasure introduction. The Dragon God of all life is a dragon god from another world captured by the Supreme Will from the ultimate void. It has the power to travel through the myriad worlds and create all living beings. The Supreme Will originally wanted to recognize it as its master and make it its pet. However, the Dragon God of all life would rather die than submit, so the Supreme Will could only give up. Later on, it was handed over to the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army Common People's Regal. Dragon God of all life. This name suits my title as a regal. Zhou Zhou was surprised. He looked at the statue and felt that this dragon god was fated with him. There must be an answer on a whim. Is this really my pet? He muttered to himself. At his level, he was already extremely clear about the division between fate and his life. This was fate. It's a gift from the heavens, something that can't be changed. For example, him being an earthling, his initial epic tier Lord talent, 100% drop rate. This was luck. Destiny probably referred to his choice and hard work. For example, he had never slacked off after obtaining a 100% drop rate. He had always demanded the highest standards of himself to grow to this point. Unlike some lords who clearly had the lord talent that could change the world, but was addicted to a moment of stability and joy. In the end, these lords had nothing. Their lives were not even as good as those lords who did not have the lord talent. This was life. Life and fate intertwined. The fate of the heavens and one's own life influenced each other, forming the fate of life forms. As Zhou Zhou looked at this statue of the dragon god of all life, he could sense that the other party's existence was entangled with his fate. And it was echoing in a good direction. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou no longer hesitated. Since it was a good fate, it didn't matter if he was destined or his life. He just had to take it. Considering too much is just asking for trouble. He directly acknowledged him as its master. The next second, the dragon god of all life, who did not even care about its supreme will, trembled slightly. Then, it transformed into a golden stream of light that rushed into the starry sky of the divine kingdom. Rumble. The starry sky of the divine kingdom emitted a dignified roar. The next second, a divine dragon billions of light years long slowly appeared in the sky of the divine kingdom. He bowed his head slightly and looked at the tiny figure below. His eyes were filled with cold arrogance and indifference. Zhou Zhou smiled. He raised his right hand and gently grabbed at the starry sky. Lord Law skill, myriad method star palm. Rip. The entire starry sky was like a piece of paper that had been ravaged wantonly, easily crushed into a ball. Before the dragon god of all life that spanned the starry sky could react, it was already held in Zhou Zhou's palm like a small worm. The entire divine kingdom fell into darkness and silence. Only Zhou Zhou was the only light. At this moment, Zhou Zhou looked at the dragon god of all life in his palm and inexplicably thought of the scene of Sun Wukong jumping up and down in Tathagata's palm in Chinese mythical tier. The two were exactly the same. Dragon god of all life. Are you convinced? Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and said with a smile. I am convinced. The dragon god of all life held it in for a long time and said indignantly. Then from today onwards, you're this emperor's pet. Your name is too long. It's troublesome to talk about. They'll call you Little Dragon. Zhou Zhou said casually. Isn't Little Dragon a bit too hasty? The dragon god of all lives' eyes widened. How about Little All? Zhou Zhou asked. Actually, Little Dragon sounds quite nice. The dragon god of all life was silent for a second before hurriedly saying. Zhou Zhou smiled. I don't believe I can't handle you. Then, he began to study the dragon god of all lives' abilities. Chapter 1496, Master God Tier Treasure Book. Pet, Little Dragon, Race, Dragon God of all life, Dragon God of the other world, Supreme Dragon God, Growing Stage, Adulthood, Strength Level, Low-Level Master God Tier Elementary Grade, changes with the strength of the Master God Tier, Skills, Common People's Dragon Might, Ultimate Dragon Breath, Common People's Will, Dragon Language Proficiency, Lord Law Skill, Cross the Heavens, Lord Law Skill, Suppress Luck, Lord Law Skill, Seal Evil Demons, Lord Law Skill All Creatures Submit, Lord Law Skill World Ascension, Lord Law Skill Amnesty for Common People, Lord Law Skill Save, Lord Law Skill, Immortality from Common People's Blessings, Lord Law Skill, Fearlessness from Common People's Blessings, Lord Law Skill, heavens will from common people's blessings, Lord law skill blessing cultivation from common people's blessings, Lord law skill loyalty from common people's blessings, Lord law skill, liveness from common people's blessings, Lord law skill, liveness from common people's blessings, potential. Changes with the owner's potential, loyalty, dead loyal, character, unruly, sympathetic to the common people, calm, like a king, knowing people well and utilizing them well, smart, kind, helpful, stubborn, brave, patient, confident, sincere, pet description, a supreme dragon god from an unknown universe. It doesn't have any offensive ability, but in terms of support abilities, especially those related to all living beings, it can be considered the number one in the heavens. Even the Supreme Will has once been tempted. Unfortunately, the Supreme Will isn't the good master of the Dragon God of all life, so it hasn't been recognized by the Dragon God of all life. Zhou Zhou looked at the interface of the Dragon God of all life and clicked his tongue in wonder. As mentioned in the pet description, this Dragon God of all life indeed had nothing to show for its offensive abilities. Its most offensive ability was still a sealing ability that sealed demons. Its other abilities were all support-type abilities. Even though it did not have offensive abilities and many god spirits would not like it, as a lord, Zhou Zhou liked this kind of dragon god who was good at support abilities very much. This was because he was not lacking in dragon gods with strong offensive abilities, such as Nazario and the other legendary dragons. Zhou Zhou felt that it was more or less a waste of their offensive ability to keep these dragons with strong offensive abilities by his side as pets and mounts, so he sent them to the battlefield. The regal dragon had always stayed in the regal sage Dao sword and did not appear often. As a result, he didn't have any pets or mounts by his side. This was timely. With the dragon god of all lives support abilities, it could be placed beside him as his personal pet and mount. The reason why it could still be used as a mount was because his Lord Law skill transcend the heavens. The dragon god of all life could open a spatial passageway to the myriad worlds and instantly arrive at any world in the myriad worlds. Its speed was even much faster than the shadow world's teleportation. Teleportation to the shadow world required one to go to the shadow world first before teleporting through the warp gate of the shadow world after all. The dragon god of all life directly skipped this step and could directly reach any world in the myriad worlds. The only regret that Zhou Zhou had was that this transmigrator could not teleport a large number of soldiers and equipment. Otherwise, he would not need to teleport to the shadow world in the future and would directly use the dragon god of all life to carry out a cross-border war. Zhou Zhou gave it a thought and the dragon god of all life instantly turned into a golden stream of light and rushed into his boots, turning into the lifelike dragon god patterns on the surface of his boots. You sure know how to find a place. Zhou Zhou smiled gently. However, even though the dragon god of all life had already fused with him, Zhou Zhou did not intend to let he stay by his side. He cultivated in the reincarnation sacred palace every day after all. It was still too wasteful to keep the dragon god of all life by his side. It was better to leave it for Zhou Fight or Zhou Marshall and the others to use as mounts and pets. It would not be too late to bring this little fellow along when he went out personally one day. Then, Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the advanced grade Divine Kingdom treasure chest. He opened it and took a look. There was a golden talisman quietly placed inside. Zhou Zhou looked over. Treasure name, Master God Tier Treasure Book, Treasure Grade, Master God Tier Advanced Grade, Treasure Effect. As long as any life form drips blood on this Master God Tier treasure book to recognize it as its master, they can obtain the strength and lifespan of the Master God Tier Advanced Grade on the random nomological path. After undoing the recognition, they will recover their original strength and lifespan. Treasure description, a supreme treasure that can change one's fate. Even a weak ant can rely on the Master God Tier treasure book to reach the heavens in a single step and become a clan protecting expert. Zhou Zhou's eyes widened. Oh my god! Just this talisman could directly make an ordinary life form with no extraordinary tier power become a clan-protecting expert who was a Master God tier advance grade. Isn't this effect too heaven-defying? Master God tier God spirits were nothing to the current JoJo. However, the key was that he could allow any life form to become a Master God tier without cultivation or the accumulation of time. For example, if JoJo had a relative and wanted this relative to accompany him for a long time, he could completely give this treasure scroll to the other party and make the other party acknowledge him as a Master God tier advance grade God spirit. This way, the other party could exist in his life for a long time. The lifespan of a Master God tier advance grade expert could be said to be unlimited after all. They could even live until the great cosmos was destroyed as long as nothing happened midway. At that time, it would be difficult for him to die. Give it to Grandpa. JoJo thought of his grandparents who were far away on Earth. Even though this talisman could be used as a reward for his subordinates, JoJo still wanted to leave it to his family. With a thought, the Master God tier treasure book in his hand disappeared and appeared in the hands of JoJo's clone on Earth. JoJo's clone would hand it to his grandfather and let him become a Master God tier God spirit. As for Grandma and the others he cherished, JoJo believed that there would be a chance in the future. Even without the Master God tier treasure book, JoJo could rely on all kinds of resources to push them to the true God tier level. The lifespan of a true God tier and a Master God tier was unlimited. The only difference was their strength. Then, his gaze landed on the 10,000 reputation rating talents and 100 mythical reputation rating talents before he retracted his gaze. In the past, he might have been excited by this reward. There was no fluctuation in his heart. Even if it was a mythical reputation rating, one mythical reputation rating was at most equivalent to a true God tier talent after all. Such talents could not be found everywhere in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, but at least they were not lacking. Of course, it was better than nothing. Then, with a thought, JoJo opened the promotion requirement panel for the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom to advance from an advanced grade Divine Kingdom to a Master God tier kingdom. Chapter 1497, Requirements to Advance to Beginner Grade Master God Tier Lord Country. Upgrade the Gate of Summoning. Divine Kingdom Name, Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, God Lord Blazing Sun, Divine Kingdom Level, Beginner Divine Kingdom Flag, All Stars Cover the Sun, Divine Kingdom Army, Blazing Sun Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, Monster Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, Dragon God Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, 10,000 Races Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, Heavenly Map Army, True God Tier Advance Grade, Homeland Defense Army, True God Tier Elementary Grade. Requirements for advancing to Master God Tier Elementary Grade, Territory Level Advances to Master God Tier Elementary Grade, Capital Region Level Advances to Master God Tier, 1000 Master God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals, Conquer 10 high-level Divine Scarlet Empires under the Crimson Overlord, O/IO, conquer 5 high-level Divine Empires that are not under the Crimson Overlord. 0 out of 5, conquer any 100 high-level Divine Kingdom Lord faction and obtain its true God tier elementary grade. Divine Token, 0 out of 100, 1 billion independent regional territories, 100,000 racial heroes, 100,000 God spirit worshippers of your own race, 10 racial divine artifact of your own race, 10 out of 10, 100 worship true God spirits of your own race, strength of the Lord yourself reaches Master God tier elementary grade. JoJo carefully looked at this promotion requirement. Then, he muttered to himself, I've already satisfied the requirements of the Divine Capital region, the number of territories in the Independent Divine Crystals region, race heroes, worshipped God spirits, race divine artifacts, true God tier spirits, and my own strength. Only the rest is not fulfilled. Among these remaining conditions, conquering Divine Kingdom tier territories is the easiest. You don't have to worry about this. Then the only thing left is to upgrade the territory. I can upgrade the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom from a high-level Divine Kingdom to Master God Tier Elementary Grade Lord Country as long as I can upgrade my territory to a low-level Master God Tier Elementary Grade. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. This was only a matter of time for him. Thinking of this, he stopped thinking and went to the Gate of Summoning. Then, he spent 200 Gai units of basic materials and 1000 True God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals to upgrade the Gate of Summoning to the level of True God Tier Advanced Grade. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Gate of Summoning has been successfully upgraded to a True God Tier Advanced Grade building. You can summon 50 million subjects every day. You will summon 1 million professionals every day. Prompt, under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 12, the number of subjects you can summon every day has reached 1,031,586,000. You will summon 1,013 professionals every day. Zhou Zhou nodded after reading it. A True God Tier Advanced Grades Gate of Summoning could summon 85,965,500 subjects. After being buffed by the Glory of the Pioneer 12, it directly increased by 12 times, becoming 1,031,586,000 people. With the heavenly summoning, these billion new subjects are at least extraordinary tier advanced grade subjects. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied. Then, he glanced at the requirement to upgrade the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade, wood 100 Gai unit, sand 100 Gai unit, metal 100 Gai unit, stone 100 Gai unit, True God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals 1000, territory level upgraded to True God Tier Elementary Grade. Zhou Zhou retracted his gaze. Then, he spent 4,000 capital units of basic materials, 10,000 advanced True God Tier Divine Crystals, and 1 billion high-grade elemental gems to upgrade the original Dragon Abyss to God Tier Advanced Grade. Building name, Original Dragon Abyss, Construction Level, True God Tier Advanced Grade, Construction Effect. You can summon 6 billion White Silver Tier Advanced Grade Pure-Blooded Dragons, 600 million Yellow Gold Tier Advanced Grade Pure-Blooded Dragons, 60 million White Platinum Tier Intermediate Grade Pure-Blooded Dragons every day from the original Dragon Abyss. 6 True God Tier Elementary Grade Dragon Gods will become subjects under the Lord and have a 12% chance of summoning legendary dragons. Note, when all the legendary dragons are summoned, the legendary dragons that can't be summoned again will be replaced by 1000 True God Tier Advanced Grade Dragon Gods. Construction upgrade, wood 1 Gai unit, sand 1 Gai unit, metal 1 Gai unit, stone 1 Gai unit, 10,000 Master God Tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals, 10 billion high-level elemental gemstones, territory upgraded to Master God Tier Elementary Grade Country Lord Level Faction, 50 Master God Tier Lord God Tier Dragon Tribe Worshippers. Zhou Zhou looked at the effect of the building. The original Dragon Abyss of a True God Tier Advanced Grade did not increase the recruitment effect by much. The greatest improvement was that the probability of recruiting legendary dragons increased from 30% to 50%. It's a 50% chance. Does this mean that I have a 50% chance of obtaining a legendary dragon every day? Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. This improvement was not bad. Every legendary dragon represented a Master God Tier Advanced Grade expert after all. Even the current Zhou Zhou would welcome such an expert to join his Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Then, his gaze landed on the notification at the back. There's actually such a notification. This kind of notification has never appeared before. Zhou Zhou stroked his chin. Then, a guess quickly appeared in his mind. This sudden notification was definitely not groundless. There must be a reason for its appearance. Don't tell me, there aren't many legendary dragons left. Is that why you gave me such a hint? Zhou Zhou thought about it and realized that it was really possible. A 50% chance of summoning a legendary dragon was already an extremely high probability. There weren't many legendary dragons to begin with. If he persisted in summoning them every day, it wouldn't be long before the legendary dragons among the dragons would definitely be summoned by him. Then it was not surprising that such a notification had appeared. Zhou Zhou shook his head and didn't care anymore after understanding this. At least for the time being, legendary dragons wouldn't summon light, so he didn't need to worry about this for the time being. Then, he looked at the upgrade requirements of the original Dragon Abyss. He realized that the other conditions had been met. Only the Dragon Clan still lacked 8 Master Gods. In addition, the territory had yet to be upgraded to a Master God tier elementary grade. However, this was not a problem for the current Zhou Zhou. He just had to give those dragons with the strength of Master God tier advanced grade some Supreme God inheritances. He knew that he would not lack the Supreme God's inheritance in the future after coming to the ultimate void battlefield. As for his territory becoming Master God tier elementary grade territory, it was only a matter of time for Zhou Zhou. Then, he returned to the world of gods and sent someone to call Mu Gu, Zheng Fugue, and Carol Moeli over. A moment later, the 3 of them arrived in front of Zhou Zhou. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The 3 of them said respectfully. "Yes, as you can see, the territory has already been promoted to a true God tier advanced grade. Tell me about your respective advancements." Zhou Zhou said. Mu Gu was naturally the first to stand up. "Your Majesty, the Scarlet Broodmother that I'm currently in has been upgraded from True God Tier Intermediate Grade to True God Tier Advanced Grade. The number of Mist Mother evolved from the True God Tier Advanced Grade Scarlet Broodmother has increased from 10 million to 20 million. Each Mist Mother's Mist Mother world can now nurture 50 billion fog monsters. 20 million Mist Mothers can nurture a total of 100 capital units fog monsters. In addition, the quality and efficiency of cultivating high-quality Scarlet Heirs has also increased. Currently, I can nurture 100 true God tier advanced grades Scarlet God Spirits or 1000 true God tier elementary grade Scarlet God Spirits in a day. I can also create 1,000,000 ordinary Scarlet God Spirits in a day." Mu Gu said respectfully. Chapter 1498, Lord Talent Improvements. When Zhou Zhou heard this, even though he was already mentally prepared, he still secretly clicked his tongue. Simply too ridiculous. That was a 100 capital units fog monster. Which meant, if he used all these Mist Mothers to nurture his soldier type, with the enhancement of Lord Talents and titles like Heavenly Fate Di Huang, he would be able to obtain 200 capital units Supreme God Realm Soldier Recruitment Books, 200 capital units Supreme God Realm Soldier Class Change Certificate, 200 capital units Supreme Holy Mage God Recruitment Books, and 200 capital units Supreme Holy Mage God Class Change Certificate. Which meant, he could have an additional 800 capital units recruits in a day. He only had 1,040 capital unit soldiers under his command. The newly recruited soldiers on this day were almost catching up to his total military strength. In addition, in terms of nurturing the Scarlet God Spirit, Mu Gu's ability had grown even more ridiculously. Not to mention nurturing a true God tier Scarlet God Spirit. For example, nurturing ordinary God Spirits below the true God tier level could actually nurture 1,000,000 ordinary Scarlet God Spirits in a day. Was this still a God Spirit? Why did it feel like it was as easy as wholesale cabbages in Mu Gu's hands? However, Zhou Zhou still had the same idea. If he could not nurture God Spirits, he would nurture ordinary soldiers. Then, Zhou Zhou thought for a long time before saying, of your 10 million Mist Mothers, 5 million will be used to nurture the Chaos Ruler, and the other 5 million will be used to nurture the Primordial Holy Canon. Mu Gu subconsciously nodded. Then, he suddenly reacted and asked in confusion, Your Majesty, aren't you going to nurture the Withered Tree and the Iron-Eating Bear? I won't train it for the time being. The initial level of these 2 fog monsters is too low, and the spoils of war produced are too low. Even if they drop higher level items after their strength is increased by you, their quality is only average. It can be seen that their potential is limited, and there's not much point in nurturing them. Moreover, the Supreme God Realm Soldier and the Supreme Holy Mage God are already very strong. They don't need any other supplements for the time being. It won't be too late to find a more suitable replacement when the time comes. Zhou Zhou shook his head. I understand. Mu Gu nodded respectfully. He also felt that the quality of the spoils of war of the two monsters was not good enough. It would be a waste of his cultivation quota to leave them in his Scarlet Broodmother. However, His Majesty had never mentioned anything about changing them. As his subordinate, he didn't mention it much. Now that His Majesty had already mentioned it, he didn't have to say much. Then, he retreated. Seeing this, Zheng Fugue stepped forward. Reporting to Your Majesty. Now, the number of mysterious merchants has increased from 200 billion to 500 billion after our territory was promoted to true God tier advance grade. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 500 billion. Among these 500 billion mysterious merchants, there are a total of 10 billion true God tiers, 100 billion ordinary God spirits, and 390 billion legendary tier advance grade experts. Our treasure hunting ability has improved again. In the future, when we go out to do business, we should be able to bring back at least 500,000 God tier treasures each time. In addition, as one of the core branches of the Mysterious Merchant Chamber of Commerce, our daily salary has increased from 1,000 Mysterious Merchant Chamber of Commerce points to 2,000 Mysterious Merchant Chamber of Commerce points. He said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded. He was once again amazed by the power of the mysterious caravan. Zheng Fugue left after saying that. Seeing this, Carol Moali stood up and said respectfully. Reporting to Your Majesty. Your Majesty, after the territory was upgraded to the true God tier advance grade, our life arc already has 5,000 trillion clergymen, 5,000 trillion priests, 5,000 trillion nuns, and 20 life paladins from the capital units. These clergymen are enough to complete the War Treatment Mission and the War Resurrection Mission for 2,000 capital units. Also, currently, there are already 500 million high-level God Spirit members in the Life Arc. Every one of them has mastered the resurrection spells, and they can resurrect the deities of our country alone. As for my strength, I'm still a Master God tier advance grade. I haven't improved yet. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. The 2,000 capital units were Healing Mission and the War Resurrection Mission. This number matched the total number of troops under him. The improvement of the Life Arc this time was really just right. Of course, after recruiting 800 capital units recruits tomorrow, it would become insufficient. However, Zhou Zhou was not worried. He believed that it would not be long before he could upgrade his territory again and then upgrade the Life Arkansas. Then, he chatted with Mu Gu and them for a while longer about the arrangements for the future. After that, he let them return. Zhou Zhou entered the Reincarnation Sacred Palace and continued his cultivation. At the same time in the Ultimate Void battlefield, Zhou Zhou entered the Reincarnation Sacred Palace and continued his cultivation. Seeing this, Zhou Fight immediately led his army onto the Eternal Mothership and began to wait for Lord of 10,000 Evil's army. While waiting, Zhou Marshal also looked at his own army in front of him. After yesterday's insight defection and advancement in strength, the number of God spirits under he had already reached 1,228,739,887 low-tier deity level Ultimate Void God spirits. 553,429,893 mid-tier deity-level Ultimate Void God Spirits, 287,332,323 high-tier deity-level Ultimate Void God Spirits, 2,588,734 Ultimate Void True God Tiers, 712 Ultimate Void Master God Tiers, and 1 Grade 1 Ultimate Void Supreme God. Compared to when he first came to the Ultimate Void battleground, his strength had improved tremendously. Compared to when he first came to the Ultimate Void battleground, his strength had improved tremendously. At this thought, Joe Marshall could not help but sigh that this ultimate void battlefield was really a good place to use the Son of Destiny. A moment later, a skeletal Supreme God cosmic battleship flew over from afar. Wherever the cosmic warship passed, even the surrounding ultimate void would tremble. Joe Fight narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the Supreme God-level cosmic battleship. This should be the Demon Lord title that Lord of 10,000 Evils specially made for the Supreme God of Creation. It's said that this thing is one of the most precious treasures of the Lord of 10,000 Evils. Just the cost of making it is 1 billion military merits and more than 10 Supreme God mission medals. It's ridiculously expensive. However, its actual combat effect is also extraordinary. Just the firepower on this Demon Lord is comparable to that of a Grade 4 Supreme God. His defensive ability is not inferior to his offensive ability. Without more than 5 Supreme Gods joining forces to attack this Demon Lord, I'm afraid they won't even be able to break through its defenses. Joe Fight was impressed and envious at the same time. When would he be able to own such a space battleship? In that case, his development and expansion speed would increase by at least 10 times. At this moment, the Demon Lord had already arrived in front of Joe Fight's army. Chapter 1499, Legendary Dragon, Azura Evil Dragon. A figure wearing black armor, a black helmet, and a black spear flew out of the Demon Lord after the Demon Lord stopped. A blood-red dragon flew in front of Joe Fight. It was Lord of 10,000 Evils. Brother Common People's Regal. Have you been waiting long? Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. We just got here too. Joe Fight shook his head. That's good then. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. Then, he pointed at the Demon Lord behind he and said proudly, Brother Common People's Regal, I brought all that I have with me for the battle today. 10 billion God spirits. 100 million true God tears. 10,000 Master God tiers. I've even brought 7 Supreme God tier powerhouses with me. This is already the majority of my troops. We must take down Savas City in today's battle. The reincarnation will frown slightly towards the end. The Lord of 10,000 Evils suddenly emitted an extremely oppressive and terrifying might. He had been in the ultimate void battleground for too long and had yearned for a satisfying victory for too long. Therefore, he didn't hide anything and went all out. When Joe Fight heard this, he nodded seriously, also a little surprised. 7 Supreme Gods. These were even more Supreme Gods than yesterday. It seemed that this third reserve army of the Supreme Lord had indeed accumulated a lot of resources over the years. The 7 Supreme Gods were probably not his hard limit. Don't worry, Brother Thousand Evils. Since I dared to come personally, I naturally have a certain degree of confidence in today's battle. Joe Fight said. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded. He naturally believed the other party's words. At their level, there were definitely no reckless fellows. Let's go. The two of them did not talk much. Both parties flew toward Savas City following Joe Fight's suggestion. Joe Fight looked out from inside the Eternal Mothership, where the Lord of 10,000 Evils was riding on his blood-red dragon and roaming directly above the Demon Lord. His speed was actually not inferior at all, and he even seemed to be at ease. From the looks of it, if this blood-red dragon flew at full speed, it might even surpass the speed of the Demon Lord. Joe Fight looked at the blood-red dragon and his expression gradually turned solemn. A legendary dragon? And it's a legendary dragon at the Supreme God level. I can't believe I just found out. He thought about it and flew out of the Eternal Mothership. Then, he saw the dragon god of all lives patterns on his boots emit a faint golden light. In the next moment, a golden dragon shadow flew out of his boots and condensed the figure of the dragon god of all life in the ultimate void. Joe Fight flew up and stood on the dragon god of all lives' head, alongside Lord of 10,000 Evils. Lord of 10,000 Evils also noticed this unfamiliar dragon that had suddenly appeared beside him. After taking a few glances, his gaze focused slightly. This legendary dragon seemed to be a little special. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice sounded. "Brother Demon Lord, you're in high spirits. There's a battleship that doesn't take the Dragon God and travels here alone. I just like being with Blood Cloud. Besides, Blood Cloud wants to fly for a while." Lord of 10,000 Evils shook his head and smiled. Then, he looked at the Dragon God of All Life under Zhou Fight's feet and said with a smile, "Brother All Life, didn't you also bring your combat companions out to travel like me? The little dragon is my new pet. It's also my first time bringing he out." Zhou Fight shook his head. Oh. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was a little surprised when he heard this. He looked at the Dragon God of All Life for a few seconds and suddenly asked in his heart, "Blood Cloud, what do you think of this legendary dragon companion of the common people's regal?" Blood Cloud also secretly looked at his own clansman. He said in a deep voice after looking at him for a while, "He isn't a legendary dragon." "Not a legendary dragon?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils was shocked when he heard this. "He is an ordinary pure-blooded dragon who advanced to the level of Master God Tier Advance grade." As the main battle avatar, Zhou Fight usually maintained the strength of a Master God Tier Advance grade most of the time. As a pet that could grow up with its master, the Dragon God of All Lives' strength was now at the level of a Master God Tier Advance grade. If Zhou Fight used King at full power, his strength would increase to the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God, and the Dragon God of All Life would also advance to the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God. However, at this moment, Lord of 10,000 Evils and the others naturally did not know this. "Not really. In my perception, I can't even sense the bloodline connection between me and him. It's as if he isn't a dragon from the original Dragon Abyss. However, the dragon might emanating from he is indeed authentic. Furthermore, it's not inferior to us legendary dragons at all." Even, Blood Cloud hesitated for a moment but did not say what was on his mind. In his perception, the dragon might emitted by the other party was even slightly stronger than him. This meant that the other party's bloodline level was extremely high, even stronger than him, a legendary dragon. This was completely unbelievable to Blood Cloud. One had to know that he was a legendary dragon. Furthermore, he could be ranked in the top 10 among all legendary dragons. He felt that he could look down on all the legendary dragons after becoming a supreme god. Even if the yellow-gold sacred dragon god or even the regal dragon appeared, he would not lower his proud head. It could be seen how confident he was in himself. However, in front of this unknown dragon, he actually felt his dragon might being suppressed by it. This was something that the extremely arrogant he was unwilling to admit. In addition, his master and the common people's regal were currently competitors. If he admitted that he might be weaker than the other party in terms of bloodline, wouldn't that increase the other party's morale and destroy his prestige? That was why he didn't say what was on his mind. Lord of 10,000 Evils also sensed that his battle partner seemed to have something else to say but didn't say it. However, he didn't ask further. At this moment, "Brother Demon Lord, this legendary dragon looks very mighty." Zhou Fight asked. "I wonder which legendary dragon it is." This was a very strange place. Zhou Zhou had many legendary dragon bloodlines, but he could not recognize who this legendary dragon was. That was why he could not help but ask. Blood Cloud is a legendary dragon, the Azura Evil Dragon. Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. Azura Evil Dragon? Zhou Fight was stunned. Pieces of inherited memories immediately flashed through his mind. Then, he could not help but say in surprise, "Didn't the Azura Evil Dragon die a long time ago?" "That's right. Back then, the Azura evil dragon led a group of dragons to challenge the yellow gold sacred dragon god in an attempt to obtain the position of clan leader. In the end, it was defeated and killed by the yellow gold sacred dragon god. This internal strife of the dragon race is known as the evil dragon chaos. I happened to be a witness to this matter back then. At that time, I felt that I was destined to be bound to Azura evil dragon, so I found Azura evil dragon's corpse in the deepest part of the original dragon abyss and paid a certain price to ask Master God Tyr Thanatos to revive Azura evil dragon. The Azura evil dragon recognized me as its master out of gratitude, and it has been my battle partner ever since. He and I have fought together in this ultimate void battleground and advanced to Supreme God together. We have already spent countless years together. Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. He had a wistful expression on his face, as if he was recalling all the experiences he had with Azura evil dragon over the years. Chapter 1500, The Secret of the Ultimate Void. Competition. Zhou Fight nodded. He did not expect that there would be a follow-up to the Evil Dragon Rebellion. His memory inheritance didn't record this matter, so it could be seen that even this divine being of the yellow gold sacred dragon probably didn't know that Azura evil dragon hadn't truly died back then, and that it had even revived and become Lord of 10,000 Evil's third reserve combat partner. No wonder Azura evil dragon hadn't appeared after so many years. The dragons had thought that the Azura evil dragon was afraid of the yellow gold sacred dragon, but it turned out that the Azura evil dragon was still alive and well. Brother Common People's Regal, this combat partner of yours is also extraordinary. He doesn't even know my Azura evil dragon. Lord of 10,000 Evils was also very curious about the dragon god under Zhou Fight's feet. His divine name is the dragon god of all life. I named him Little Dragon. His background is indeed a little special. He is a treasure rewarded to me by the Supreme Will. He is not a dragon from the Supreme Great Cosmos or the Crimson Great Cosmos, but a dragon from the alternate universe in the Ultimate Void. Zhou Fight said. There was nothing to hide. Ordinary legendary dragons could sense the specialness of the dragon god of all life. It was better to say it directly instead of being secretive. They were both Supreme Lord Reserve armies, and it was just a pet. There was no need for them to feel bad over such a small matter. It was not related to the key treasure that the Supreme Lords were fighting for after all. It's actually a dragon from another world from the Ultimate Void. No wonder. The Lord of 10,000 Evils and Azura evil dragon both came to a sudden realization hearing Zhou Fight's explanation. As the leader of the Ultimate Void battleground, Lord of 10,000 Evils naturally knew that there were still great cosmoses like the Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos in the Ultimate Void. There were even universes that were stronger than these two universes. Brother Common People's Regal, what good luck. The Supreme will actually rewarded you with the dragon god of the another world from the Ultimate Void. The Lord of 10,000 Evils congratulated. Brother Demon Lord, you've guarded the Ultimate Void battleground for many years. You should know the Ultimate Void very well, right? Can you tell me about it so that I can broaden my horizons? Zhou Fight asked. He was also very curious about the Ultimate Void. No problem, no problem. Brother Common People's Regal, you're welcome. Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded and said slowly, the Ultimate Void is a vast and boundless land that encompasses a large number of great cosmoses. It is an infinite territory that truly doesn't exist at the borders of regions. Because the Ultimate Void gave birth to a large number of multiverse civilizations, the Ultimate Void's world is also very exciting. However, the Ultimate Void is a very dangerous world after all. Only those who have reached the level of supreme willpower can travel freely in the Ultimate Void. Only those with strong willpower can protect themselves in the Ultimate Void. Unless there are more than 10 willpower transcendents attacking one willpower transcendent at the same time, there is basically no need to worry about encountering any danger. That was because the ultimate void has countless experts and treasures. There will occasionally be some experts and treasures that accidentally descend into some great universes in the ultimate void. To be honest, I've been guarding the ultimate void battleground for many years. I've also accidentally obtained many treasures from it. Even though most of the grades are average, the various functions are quite fancy. It's not bad to collect them. A small portion of those treasures are extremely helpful even to us. Brother Common People's Regal, you'll often be in the ultimate void battleground in the future. Why don't you take a stroll around this battlefield in your free time? Perhaps you'll have unexpected gains. I'll give it a try when I have time. Zhou Fight nodded. Then, he thought for a moment and suddenly asked, are there any other universe civilizations in the ultimate void that are stronger than our Supreme Will and Crimson Overlord? I know what you're worried about, Brother Common People's Regal. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and shook his head. But you don't have to worry. Willpower is the end of all the civilizations in the great cosmos. The upper limit of the ultimate void is here. If I want to pursue a higher level, one have to break through reality and trace back to illusionary. I have to merge reality with illusionary and become an unknown realm. I can't say much. I'm only at Supreme God after all. I don't know much about things at that level. The Lord of 10,000 Evils shook his head, but his eyes revealed his desire. Who didn't want to reach the unknown realm that even the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord wanted? Zhou Fight was already deep in thought. This conversation with Lord of 10,000 Evils allowed him to obtain a lot of information that he didn't know before. Break through reality, trace back to illusionary, and complete the fusion of reality and illusionary. Was this the reason why the illusionist clan and the great cosmos had been at war? He thought for a moment and stopped thinking about it. That level was still too far away from him. He had just advanced to the Master God tier elementary grade. Even though his combat power was not inferior to that of a supreme god, there was no need for him to explore that unknown realm so early. He might only end up with endless worries if he wanted to obtain too much. Brother Common People's Regal. How about we compete in speed? The Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at the dragon god of all life under Zhou Fight's feet, and the competitive spirit in his heart suddenly rose. Between the dragon god of the other world and the local dragon god, which was stronger and faster? And while he was at it, he wanted to suppress this competitor's prestige. He broke the 1,000-year record and took back the first city in 1,000 years as soon as this Common People's Regal arrived. He obtained the first victory against the ultimate void race in 1,000 years. It was true that Lord of 10,000 Evils was happy, but it would definitely be a lie to say that he didn't have any ill feelings. Therefore, he only suggested this competition now, hoping to earn back some face for him. I can let Blood Cloud suppress its strength to the level of Master God tier advanced grade. How about we have a little competition? Zhou Fight asked in surprise, really? The little dragon is extremely adept at speed, so this isn't very fair to Azura Evil Dragon. The Lord of 10,000 Evils, the Azura Evil Dragon, it was red hot. One sentence was enough to make this god spirit and dragon feel warm. The Azura Evil Dragon was a grade 1 supreme god, and even though it was suppressing its strength, its foundation and experience alone were not something that the dragon god of all life could compare to. Yet, the dragon god of all life actually said that this was unfair to Azura Evil Dragon. The dragon god of the other world. Do you dare to compete? The Azura Evil Dragon spoke in a low voice for the first time. You'll lose. The dragon god of all life glanced at Azura Evil Dragon before speaking. The Azura Evil Dragon was enraged. However, he didn't dare to flare up since his master didn't say anything. When Zhou Fight saw this, he said, let's compete since both our pets are willing. Just treat it as entertainment before the battle. Okay. The Lord of 10,000 Evils immediately replied. He secretly gritted his teeth. He didn't believe that this otherworldly dragon god could be faster than his blood cloud. Chapter 15:01, Bet. You can compete, but there's no need to suppress your strength. Your Excellency's Azura evil dragon can just use its normal strength to compete with the little dragon. Zhou Fight said. The Azura evil dragon faltered for a moment before its expression completely darkened. Anger appeared on Lord of 10,000 Evil's face. Ha! Wanting to defeat the Grade 1 Supreme God Azura Evil Dragon as a Master God Tier Advanced Grade Expert? How can you win? What does this common people's regal mean by saying such ridiculous things? Is he deliberately humiliating us because he knew that he could not defeat us? These thoughts appeared in an instant. Just as Lord of 10,000 Evils was about to say something, I am the king of all living beings in the world. A deep voice sounded. Then, he saw Zhou Fight's aura increase rapidly under the shocked gaze of Lord of 10,000 Evils. He had just advanced to Master God Tier Advanced Grade God Spirit. Now that he had cast King, he had instantly become a top Master God Tier Advanced Grade God Spirit. He seemed to be about to break through this realm and reach the Supreme God Spirit realm. Boom! Zhou Fight's divine might directly broke through the limits of a Master God Tier Advanced Grade and reached the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God as if following Lord of 10,000 Evils and Azura Evil Dragon's wishes. The surrounding ultimate void environment shook slightly at this moment. At the same time, the Dragon God of all life was a pet-type dragon god that could grow up with its master. The moment Zhou Fight became a Grade 1 Supreme God, his strength also increased to the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God. Roar! Due to the increase in strength, the Dragon God of all life raised its head and roared. The divine dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. At this moment, almost all the living beings in a radius of nearly 10,000 kilometers could hear the Dragon God of all lives' dragon roar. Meanwhile, Lord of 10,000 Evils and Azura Evil Dragon were completely dumbfounded as they looked at the calm Zhou Fight and the arrogant Dragon God of all life. What? What just happened? Isn't this pair of master and servant just at the Master God Tier Advanced Grade? How did they become a Grade 1 Supreme God in the blink of an eye? The Lord of 10,000 Evils racked his brains and quickly thought of a piece of information about the common people's regal. It's rumored that the common people's regal has a heaven-defying Lord Law skill that can increase one's God Spirit realm. I didn't pay much attention to it, but which expert doesn't have a powerful Lord Law skill after all? Nonetheless, I didn't expect this. This brother common people's regal of mine has a Lord Law skill that can increase his cultivation level. He can actually raise his cultivation level from a Master God Tier Advanced Grade to a Supreme God. He is too powerful even if he is only a Grade 1 Supreme God. The Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at Zhou Fight, who was emitting the aura of a Grade 1 Supreme God, and the importance he placed on him instantly increased by more than 10 times. Initially, he looked down on the common people's regal who only had the strength of Master God Tier Advanced Grade, no matter how polite he appeared on the surface. But now, looking at the other party's genuine Grade 1 Supreme God faction, it was enough for him to treat them as equals even if it was only temporary. Needless to say, the Dragon God of all life under him had also been strengthened to the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God as the other party's strength increased. In addition, the other party had just in sight Defection's Grade 1 Ultimate Void Supreme God, Kai's. This meant that the other party already had the power of 3 Supreme Gods. Even though they were both Grade 1 Supreme Gods, Lord of 10,000 Evils treated them seriously and equally. At this moment, Zhou Fight did not seem to realize that the sudden increase in his pet and his strength had the same effect on the other party. He chuckled and said, "Let's start the competition now. Who will reach Sava City first?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils and Azura Evil Dragon exchanged a glance before nodding. Okay. In that case, why don't we set up another bet? If my blood cloud wins this competition, I will give 3 supreme divine artifacts to Brother Common People's Regal. If Brother Common People's Regal wins this competition, can Brother Common People's Regal show me the Lord Law skill to increase your strength? How about it? The Lord of 10,000 Evils asked. 3 supreme divine artifacts and a law skill secret technique that could increase one's strength to the supreme god level. In the eyes of outsiders, it was really hard to say which was more valuable. The Lord of 10,000 Evils might think that the two were equal. He might even think that the 3 supreme divine artifacts were more valuable. Of course, 3 supreme divine artifacts were nothing to Zhou Fight. He did not lack supreme divine artifacts at all. Forget about the supreme divine artifact. I want 3 universal race divine artifacts. Zhou Fight directly refused and asked for what he wanted. 3 universal race divine artifacts. The Lord of 10,000 Evils' expression changed slightly. The Azura evil dragon also looked like it wanted to complain. 3 universal race divine artifacts. They were not inferior to supreme divine artifacts at all. It was even more valuable to the race leaders who valued the development of their race. You are asking for 3 universal race divine artifacts right from the start. Your appetite is really big. Unexpectedly, the Lord of 10,000 Evils pondered for a few seconds and actually nodded. Okay. Let's bet on it. He believed that with Azura evil dragon's abilities, he would be able to defeat the dragon god of all life, who had relied on a secret technique to raise its strength to that of a grade 1 supreme god. Zhou Fight smiled when he heard that. Shall we start now? He asked. Okay. The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't stand on ceremony and immediately gave the order before disappearing from Zhou Fight's sight on Azura evil dragon's back. It was obvious that he was speeding up on his nomological techniques or secret arts as he headed toward Sarah City. Zhou Fight was speechless. This guy was really impatient. He was not in a hurry. He even waved his right hand and placed a tea table and 2 chairs on a flat area above the dragon god of all lives' head. Zhou Fight walked over and sat on the chair. He instructed Bai Yun and the rest to let them know who would be the first to reach Sarah City between him and Lord of 10,000 Evils as he brewed tea for himself. After making the arrangements, it was quite some time before he slowly said, "Little dragon. Let's go to Sarah City." "Yes, master." The dragon god of all life nodded. Then, he opened his dragon mouth and suddenly spewed out a 7-colored pillar of light. This 7-colored pillar of light shot out into the ultimate void. In just a few seconds, it actually formed a teleportation vortex. On the other side of the vortex, one could vaguely see a dark purple city standing in the ultimate void environment. That was one of Zhou Fight's goals, Sarah City. When Zhou Fight saw this scene, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Normally speaking, in the ultimate void environment, unless a will-level existence could forcefully break through the ultimate void and carry out teleportation, other existences, even supreme gods, could not break through the ultimate void and carry out ultra-long-distance teleportation. Zhou Fight and his subordinates had not been able to do this before. However, after Zhou Fight obtained the dragon god of all life that Zhou had sent over and briefly understood and tested his abilities, he was shocked to discover that the Lord Law skill of the dragon god of all life could actually be used in the ultimate void. Chapter 1502, 3 Universal Race Divine Artifacts. At that time, he did not even have the strength of a grade 1 supreme god and was only an advanced grade master god. He could easily use the Lord's Law skill in the ultimate void to travel through the heavens to carry out ultra-long distance teleportation. When Zhou Fight saw this, he even specially asked the dragon god of all life how he could do this. In the end, the dragon god of all life said that he was just able to do such a thing. He could do it whenever he wanted to and didn't find it difficult at all. Zhou Feit was speechless at this reason. However, he also realized that the little dragon, the supreme dragon god from another world, could indeed do some things that the legendary dragons of this universe could not. For example, he could teleport freely in the ultimate void. Zhou Feit, who knew about this, was naturally very excited. With the little dragon's move to transcend the heavens, it would be much easier for him to occupy the bases of other ultimate void races in the ultimate void battleground in the future. The only pity was that the little dragon's transmigration could only be used by its master. It could not bring an army directly to Sava City. Otherwise, he would have already arrived at Sava City with his army. At the same time, this was also the reason why he dared to accept the Lord of 10,000 Evils challenge. Why wouldn't he want the 3 universal race divine artifacts for free? Zhou Feit stopped thinking about it and got the dragon god of all life to hide himself. At the same time, he completely concealed his presence. He passed through the teleportation vortex with the little dragon and arrived in the sky not far away from Sava City. Then, he drank tea while waiting for Lord of 10,000 Evils and the armies of both sides to arrive. Half an hour later, Zhou Feit, who was drinking tea, suddenly sensed something and looked up. A blood-colored figure flew over from afar and quickly hid himself and landed in another spot not far from Sava City. Even though Zhou Feit could not see the other party, he already knew that it was Lord of 10,000 Evils. He opened his friend list, found Lord of 10,000 Evils, and informed him of his location. Lord of 10,000 Evils. A moment later, the Lord of 10,000 Evils brought Azura Evil Dragon to Zhou Feit and silently looked at Zhou Feit and the Dragon God of all life. "What are you looking at, Brother Demon Lord?" Zhou Feit was baffled. "I just didn't expect you to arrive so quickly." The Lord of 10,000 Evils sighed and asked, "When did Brother Common People's Regal arrive?" "I got here about half an hour ago," Zhou Feit said with a faint smile. The Lord of 10,000 Evils and Azura Evil Dragon's eyes widened upon hearing this. "About half an hour ago? What kind of joke is this?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils and the Azura Evil Dragon couldn't imagine how fast the other party would have been if they had arrived in Sarah City half an hour ago. Even the Aurora Kingdom's Supreme God, who was known as the fastest Supreme God among the Supreme Gods, could not reach this speed, right? Brother Common People's Regal teleported here. The Lord of 10,000 Evils thought of something and his expression changed slightly as he said excitedly. "Little Dragon has the ability to teleport in the ultimate void." Zhou Feit replied. There was nothing to hide actually. Others could guess it at a glance. The Lord of 10,000 Evils still couldn't help but take a deep breath even though he was mentally prepared. He had the teleportation ability in the ultimate void battleground. Wouldn't that be equivalent to one of the greatest advantages of the ultimate void creatures? Wouldn't it no longer be a problem in front of his brother Common People's Regal? Looks like the Common People's Regal was sent here by the Supreme Will for a reason. The Lord of 10,000 Evils thought. The Azura Evil Dragon beside him also stared blankly at the Dragon God of all life. It actually had the ability to teleport. Then, he didn't lose in vain. It wasn't just an injustice. The other party had the teleportation ability and was already on the winning side from the start. He even foolishly flew toward Saros City. Azura Evil Dragon felt like laughing as he recalled how he had vowed to compete in speed with his opponent. However, having the teleportation ability in the ultimate void battleground was a huge advantage. His master would definitely be very tempted, right? The Azura Evil Dragon looked at Lord of 10,000 Evils. The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't say anything after he regained his senses. Instead, he took out 3 items. They were a dark yellow treasure bell, a pitch-black stick, and a jade that emitted cold air. Zhou Feit sensed the aura on it and his expression changed slightly. These 3 items were all race divine artifacts. Moreover, they were all universal race divine artifacts. If you're willing to bet, you have to admit defeat. These 3 race divine artifacts are yours. The Lord of 10,000 Evils said. There was obvious pain on his face. With that, he waved his right hand, and the 3 universal race divine artifacts flew in front of Zoophyte. Thank you, Brother Demon Lord. Zoophyte smiled. If I had known that you had the teleportation ability, I wouldn't have competed no matter what. The Lord of 10,000 Evils sighed. Zoophyte chuckled and did not say anything else. Instead, he first recognized these 3 race divine artifacts as his master. Then, he checked the information of these 3 race divine artifacts. The first was the dark yellow precious bell. Race divine artifact name, black yellow treasure bell, low-level race divine artifact, equipment grade, unique one of the race human bind, replaceable, race divine artifact ability, heaven and earth, increases the luck of the human race by 1%. ZTZS actually a luck-type race divine artifact. Zoophyte thought in surprise when he saw this effect. Luck could be said to be the most important thing for a race. If a race had enough luck, then no matter how weak this race was now, unless they encountered a race with stronger luck, they would definitely rise in the future. Experts of their races, treasures, opportunities, turning misfortune into fortune, calamity into fortune, luck could satisfy all these things that only happened based on probability, as long as there was enough time. It could be seen how important luck was. Still, 1% of luck was very little. As expected of a low-level race divine artifact. Zoophyte complained in his heart and looked at the black rod. Race divine artifact name, heaven raising staff, low-level race divine artifact, equipment grade, unique one of the race human bind, replaceable, race divine artifact ability, heaven raising power. When humans use staff-type weapons, it increases the user's strength by 20%. Zoophyte's mouth twitched after reading it. Alright. It is a useful but not so useful low-level race divine artifact. He did not say anything. He looked at the 3rd race divine artifact, which was the cold jade. Race divine artifact name, divine winter jade, low-level race divine artifact, equipment grade, unique one of the race human bind, replaceable, race divine artifact ability, heart of winter. Humans are unafraid of cold weather. The comers of Zoophyte's mouth twitched again. Then, he consoled himself. At least the humans didn't have to wear thick cotton-padded jackets in winter. Forget it, forget it. In any case, he had obtained it for free. It was better than nothing. However, when he looked up at Lord of 10,000 Evils, he still complained, Brother Demon Lord, these 3 race divine artifacts are quite useless. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and didn't reply. Chapter 1503, Void Great General. Zoophyte put away the 3 universal race divine artifacts. Zoophyte was already mentally prepared for this, even though the effects of these 3 universal race divine artifacts were relatively useless or ordinary. He had not said that he wanted any top-notch universal race divine artifacts in the beginning after all. In that case, it was hard to say if Lord of 10,000 Evils would agree to this bet. It was not bad to obtain these 3 universal race divine artifacts now. Why didn't Brother Common People's Regal bring his army over? The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't say much about this matter and asked curiously. Little Dragon can only bring me, its master, here. Zoophyte shook his head. There was nothing to hide. I see. That's a pity. The Lord of 10,000 Evils said regretfully. He heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. It was already ridiculous enough to be able to perform ultra-long-distance teleportation in the ultimate void battleground. It would be too heaven-defying if he could still teleport the army around. Fortunately, he could not do it. Then, Lord of 10,000 Evils sat down and chatted with Zhou Zhan while waiting for their army to arrive. As they had paid attention to hiding themselves, during this period, the garrison of Saras city did not realize that the enemy leader they were guarding against was already sitting at their city gate and drinking tea leisurely. 2 hours later, the Demon Lord and Eternal Mothership had just arrived near Saras city. However, just as the two spaceships arrived, they heard an alarm in Sava city not far away. Then, they saw ultimate void god spirits fly out of the city and stand above the city, looking at them warily. One didn't expect it to be discovered so quickly. Zhou Fight said. The Supreme God level defense setup of Sava city is a Grade 2 Supreme God level defense setup. It's even stronger than the defense of Kai's city. Furthermore, its anti-exploration and anti-exploration abilities are extremely strong. It's not surprising that it discovered us. The Lord of 10,000 Evils' expression was normal. He had clearly expected this situation. Zhou Fight nodded. Since he had been discovered, then they should start the war without any qualms. At this moment, two ultimate void god spirits with the pressure of a Grade 1 Supreme God flew out of Sava city. They were the two vice city lords of Sava city. Void Great General, Solomon. There was also the Void Great General Elzum. The Lord of 10,000 Evils. And that new Supreme Lord Reserve Army? You're the ones who captured Kai's city, killed City Lord Kai's, and even made us head to Kai's city as guests, so much so that the whereabouts of City Lord Savas are unknown. The Void Great General Solomon said. He had a dark purple body and two purple spiral hums on his head. He held two snow-white sabers that emitted a faint purple fluorescent light and pointed at Lord of 10,000 Evils and Zhou Zhan unhappily. Is our city lord dead or alive? The other Void Great General, Elzum, who was as large and bloated as an abomination and held a meteor hammer, said with a dark expression. They didn't expect it either. Their city lord had only gone out to eat with the city lord of Kai's city when Kai's city was destroyed. Their city lord was also implicated and nothing was known about his situation. The reason why Sava city could secure its position as a Grade 2 void base was because of Savas, the city lord with the strength of a Grade 2 Supreme God. Now that the city lord's whereabouts were unknown, coupled with the fall of Kai's city, how could he not panic? He looked at Solomon in disgust. This fellow had always coveted his position as the city lord. The whereabouts of the city lord were unknown, but not only was Solomon not worried, he became even more arrogant. He had always insisted on confirming the fact that Savas had died and wanted him to become the city lord legitimately. Elzum naturally did not want such a thing to happen as Savas' trusted aide. Moreover, even if Savas died, the one who would inherit the position of city lord should be him, not this fellow that he hated. These thoughts only flashed through his mind. He looked very calm on the surface, making it impossible to tell what he was really thinking. At the same time, Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at each other and smiled after hearing Solomon and Elzum's words. This guy doesn't seem to know that his city lord has already defected to the Brother Common People's Regal. Brother Common People's Regal, do you want to show off to them? Shake their morale? The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. Sure. Zhou Fight had the same thought. Then, they revealed themselves. When the two of them appeared out of thin air in front of Sava city, Solomon and Elzum were shocked. They did not expect that these two enemy faction leaders had already arrived at them early, and they had not even discovered a trace. However, they did not bother too much about it. So what if they could hide themselves? Wouldn't they still have to wait obediently outside the city in front of the Grade 2 Supreme God-level defense facilities of Sava city? You're the new Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army. Solomon sized up him, and was surprised to discover that the other party was at the level of a Grade 1 Supreme God like him. Even the mount under him was at the Supreme God level. This guy had only become the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army for a short time, but he was already a Grade 1 Supreme God. Thinking about how he had worked so hard to barely become a grade 1 supreme god and was still far from becoming a grade 2 supreme god, a hint of jealousy appeared in Solomon's eyes, but this expression was quickly hidden by him. Kid. He's not old. You're quite capable of causing trouble. Watch me for a while. I'll cut off your head and offer it to your excellency. Towards the end, Solomon licked his purple lips, his eyes burning with ambition. If he could take down Lord of 10,000 Evils or one of the common people's regals, he would definitely be able to become the city lord of Sava city, right? No. At that time, I won't be a small city lord. Perhaps your excellency will reward me with resources to advance to the will level. At that time, I'll be a Void Emperor General, under the Emperor. Zhou Fei glanced at him indifferently. Then, with a thought, he called Saras out. Saras quickly came out and stood in front of Zhou Fei. Greetings, Your Majesty. He said respectfully. Today, you will be the Deputy General who conquers Saras city. Zhou Fei said. Yes, Your Majesty. Saras agreed without hesitation. Then, he said, the Vice City Lord of Saras city, Elzum, is my trusted general and also my good friend. I'll persuade he to surrender. He will definitely surrender to us. Go on. Zhou Fei nodded. Saras left respectfully. Then, he came to the front of the 2 cosmic battleships and the thousands of capital units army and looked down at Saras city. When he appeared here, the ultimate void god spirits below immediately erupted. Chapter 1504, Second Grade Supreme God Building Third Order Gold Ball. Especially Elzum and Solomon, who looked at Saras in shock. They had no idea why the city lord was standing there. Could he be standing there under threat? However, he didn't have any enemies around him, nor did he seem to have any restrictions on him. At this moment, Savas spoke under the gazes of many ultimate void god spirits. Elzum, Solomon and all the ultimate void god spirits in Savas city. I've already submitted to the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, which is His Excellency the common people's regal. The Void Emperor is cruel and heartless. He is headstrong and conceited and does not make a good master. The common people's regal is one of the future successors of the Supreme Will. Not only does he treat his subordinates well, he also has supreme luck on him. He will definitely rise in the future. He is the good lord we should serve. Now that our army is besieging Saras city, there's no doubt that Sava city has fallen. It's just a matter of time. Everyone, give up resisting. This way, not only will we have a new way out, we would also not have to withstand the pressure of the Void Emperor. Our new master and the Supreme will also treat us, the first batch of ultimate void god spirits to submit to them, well. We will only die if we insist on resisting. You know my personality very well. I really don't want to fight with you. Towards the end, Savas sighed with some true emotions. He heard Solomon retort sternly as soon as he stopped. You traitor, Savas. You actually dared to betray His Excellency the Void Emperor and become the enemy's lackey. You even dared to publicly reveal the fact that you betrayed us and even wanted to bewitch us to become traitors like you. How shameless. To think that we trusted you so much as the city lord previously. I didn't expect you to repay us like this now. Are you worthy of His Excellency the Void Emperor's nurturing of you? I announce that from now on, I'm the city lord of Sava city. Sava city will officially be renamed Solomon city. All the ultimate void god spirit soldiers of Solomon city, watch carefully. If anyone dares to listen to that traitor's bewitchment and betray our void emperor, kill them immediately. If they violate the order, they will be punished with the same crime. After Solomon finished speaking, he glanced at Elzum with a dangerous gaze. In the entire Solomon city, the person he felt most likely to betray was naturally Sava's trusted general, Elzum. At this moment, if this Elzem dared to betray him at all, he would dare to immediately lead the generals to kill him. Of course, it was naturally best not to betray him. He also hoped to use Elzem's hand to deal with Savas and the two Supreme Lord Reserve armies so that he could make an unprecedented contribution and become popular in front of the Void Emperor. And Elzem's subsequent actions made him heave a sigh of relief. He said to Savas in the sky with a disappointed expression, "City Lord, no, Savas, you disappoint me too much. Why did you betray the Void Emperor and join the Supreme Lord Reserve army? Can't you tell that these so-called Supreme Lord Reserve armies will be expelled from the ultimate Void battlefield sooner or later? Even their Supreme Great Cosmos and Crimson Great Cosmos will be breached by us sooner or later and become a part of the ultimate Void. You've submitted to a future failure. Is your taste already so bad? Or are you trying to save your life, so you compromise to become their lackey and say those words just now?" Elzem. Savas' expression suddenly became very serious, even a little fanatical and holy. "I serve under my master's command with all my heart. In addition, the future of Master and the entire Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos is not something you can decide with a few words. However, I'm sure that in the future, the winner of the war between the Supreme Great Cosmos and the Ultimate Void will definitely be Master." "How can you be so sure?" Elzem was even more disappointed. "That is because our Lord is the will of the heavens," Savas said firmly. "Crazy." Solomon sneered. Elzem was silent for a few seconds before shaking his head. "Looks like we can only meet on the battlefield. I will never betray His Excellency the Void Emperor." Saras did not say anything else. Instead, he returned to Zhou Fight's side and said respectfully, "Your Majesty. I also know a weak point of the Supreme God defense facilities in Savas City. As long as we attack this weak point with all our might, we can break through the defense of Savas City. At that time, Savas City which is void of their defense would indeed be worthy of being your Majesty's possession. Tell Zero the weak point. Zero will lead the soldiers to attack together." Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction. He had originally thought that if Savas' persuasion failed, he would use the Son of Destiny to subdue Saras City. However, if he could rely on the weak point that Saras mentioned to attack Saras City, he could save the number of times he could use the Son of Destiny to deal with Wanlong City. On the other side, Savas had already arrived at Zero and talked about Savas City's weakness. The Grade 2 Supreme God Defense Facility in Savas City is called the Triple Golden Cudgel. It's a Grade 2 Supreme God Divine Artifact and also a Grade 2 Supreme God Defense Building. Not only is its defense extremely powerful, it can almost withstand most attacks at the level of a Grade 4 Supreme God. It can even absorb attacks for its own use. As long as the controller gives the order, it can counterattack all the attacks absorbed by Triple Golden Cudgel to the attacker. It can also counterattack 3 times in a row. The power of these 3 counterattacks can even stack, causing the attacker to die under its own attacks. In the Ultimate Void, many powerful Grade 4 Supreme Gods died in the face of the counterattack of these 3 heavy gold coins. Back then, a will-level Void Emperor General rewarded me with this Triple Golden Cudgel and asked me to guard Savas City. In the end, I discovered something when I took over Triple Golden Cudgel. I don't know if it's because I've experienced too many battles or because of other reasons, but I actually discovered a loophole on its surface. This loophole is extremely small. Only a god who has personally controlled the entire Triple Golden Cudgel will know that location. And I happen to control it. When Saras City activates the Triple Golden Cudgel later, it'll tell you the location of the loophole and the time to attack. When the time comes, you just have to listen to me and attack. I guarantee that we can destroy Saras City. Saras said. Sure. Zero chose to believe in Saras. At the same time, in the outside world, Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils also began to command the army to attack Solomon City. Chapter 1505, Begin the Offensive. Zophite did not send troops near Savas city according to Savas' plan. Instead, from afar, he ordered the Supreme God Realm soldiers and Supreme Holy Mage gods to launch a long-range attack on Savas city from afar. Endless law skills and supreme divine techniques shot toward Savas city like a dense meteor shower with astonishing might. The entire sky above Savas city seemed to be completely enveloped by a meteor shower at this moment. The ultimate void god spirits of Savas city could not even see the normal ultimate void environment. When they looked up, they could only see all kinds of long-range attacks that filled the sky and continuously landed on the surface of Savas city. There was a buzzing sound just as these attacks landed in the sky above Savas city. Then, an incomparably huge dark golden shadow suddenly appeared out of thin air and enveloped the entire Savas city. The attack from the army of god spirits, which numbered in the tens of billions, melted into the triple golden cudgel like water when it landed on the huge phantom. Furthermore, after entering the triple golden cudgel, it was weakened and absorbed 3 times in a row. When it really fell into the interior of the triple golden cudgel, it only caused a slight tremor inside the triple golden cudgel. It did not cause the triple golden cudgel any damage at all. At this moment, Solomon, the new owner of the triple golden cudgel, felt that the triple golden cudgel he controlled actually had such a shocking defensive effect. He was immediately overjoyed. At this moment, Solomon, the new owner of the triple golden cudgel, felt that the triple golden cudgel he controlled actually had such a shocking defensive effect. He was immediately overjoyed. As long as I have this treasure, even if Lord of 10,000 Evils and the new Supreme Lord's Reserve Army double, they will not pose a threat to me at all. Humph. So what if Savas became a traitor and defected to the enemy? With me, Solomon, around, I, a grade 1 Supreme God, can also guard this grade 2 void base city. Solomon said proudly. Did he discover that the difficulty of defending the city was not as high as he had imagined? He could still defend Solomon's city even if Savas betrayed him. At this moment, he suddenly discovered something, and his expression changed slightly. His will was focused on an inconspicuous but real small hole in the triple golden cudgel. Why is there a damaged hole here? Has it been in disrepair for a long time? Or is it because of past wars? Savas asked in shock. He looked at the tiny hole. He relaxed his brows slightly after a while. Fortunately, the hole in this triple golden cudgel is internal, and it's very difficult to discover from the outside. Otherwise, if the 2 Supreme Lord Reserves find out about this weakness of the triple golden cudgel and launch a targeted attack, the triple golden cudgel might really not be able to defend against their attack. That would be bad. He muttered inwardly. And as long as they did not attack the location of this small hole, the 30,000 gold coins and Solomon's city would definitely be safe. When the reinforcements arrived, it would be the end of the 2 Supreme Lords' Reserve Army. At that time, he would be able to rely on this huge contribution to ask Your Excellency for credit and reward. However, at this moment, his expression suddenly changed. Then, he suddenly raised his head, wanting to look for Savas, who had long disappeared from the sky. That's not right. That traitor Savas will definitely know the location of this loophole. At the thought of this, Solomon felt his divine spark tremble slightly, and he looked a little flustered. Will he tell the army of the Supreme Will the location of this loophole so that he could use it to attack my Solomon city? I don't think so. He had just joined the Supreme Will. He will not tell them everything as soon as he joins, right? Solomon comforted himself in his heart. However, his expression turned uglier and uglier. A moment later, the army of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and Lord of 10,000 Evils continued to attack the triple golden cudgel of Solomon's city. The triple golden cudgel emitted a faint golden light, seemingly unaffected by the massive number of attacks from the outside world. However, Zophite remained calm as if he was waiting for something. Even though Lord of 10,000 Evils did not understand the situation, since Zophite, the commander-in-chief, did not say anything, he did not say much. At this moment, Zophite suddenly received some news, and a smile appeared on his face. He turned to look at Lord of 10,000 Evils. "Brother Demon Lord, I'll treat you to a good show next." "What show?" the Lord of 10,000 Evils asked. "Brother Demon Lord, wait a few seconds. This show will be over soon," Zophite said with a faint smile. Lord of 10,000 Evils could only nod and wait. At the same time, Zophite looked out from inside the Eternal Mothership. Savas suddenly said, "The offensive energy in the triple golden cudgel should be almost fully stored now. Next, I have to suddenly increase the strength of my attacks by 3 times. Moreover, I have to focus on the loophole of triple golden cudgel. This way, before Solomon can react, it can instantly fill up the triple golden cudgel's energy and deal fatal damage to it. At that time, the triple golden cudgel will have too much attacking energy. In addition, there will be gaps that can leak out. At that time, the triple golden cudgel will explode because of the excessive energy compression. Even though this will severely damage the triple golden cudgel and it might even be completely scrapped, this can at least break through Sava City's defense and allow His Majesty to successfully take down Sava City." "I understand," Zero said. Then, he directly began to give orders to the entire army, including the 10 billion God Spirits army brought by Lord of 10,000 Evils. Zophite was now the commander-in-chief after all. He had the right to mobilize all the soldiers, including the soldiers on his side. "All soldiers and God Spirits, listen up. From now on, release all your divine power and focus your attacks on a fixed location. Focus your strongest attacks on the attack location in the shortest time possible. I've already sent you the exact location of the attack point. Take note of your aim. Countdown begins now. 3, 2, 10, attack." With Zero's order, the tens of billions of God Spirits began to jointly attack the location of the loophole. A few minutes ago, Solomon thought that Savas had not told the army of the Supreme Will about the shortcomings of triple golden cudgel. He even heaved a sigh of relief. This traitor is quite smart. He didn't use all his trump cards. But in the next moment, he saw that the law skill attacks and supreme divine techniques that filled the sky were all gathered together. The various nomological lights even mixed together and even turned into a chaotic pillar of light that struck the loophole of triple golden cudgel. The triple golden cudgel was completely filled with surging attack energy just for a moment. In the next second, rumble. A huge explosion sounded, and this triple golden cudgel, which had protected Sava City for tens of thousands of years and had experienced countless battles and killings, directly caused an unprecedented explosion. Chapter 1506, Killed a Supreme God. By Yun's Supreme God Inheritance. All kinds of law skills shot out in all directions from the triple golden cudgel's shattered interior like released prisoners, killing or seriously injuring every enemy who dared to block them. And the one who was most involved was Solomon. As the controller of the triple golden cudgel and in order to use it, he was the closest to it. Therefore, when the triple golden cudgel exploded, the unprepared Solomon almost used his face to withstand most of the power of the explosion. A Grade 2 Supreme God Divine Artifact was also a Grade 2 Supreme God level defensive building. In addition, there were tens of billions of God Spirits, hundreds of millions of true God Tiers, tens of thousands of Master God Tiers, and all the attacking energy of the 7 Supreme Gods stored inside. Under the combined destruction of these energies, Solomon only had time to open his mouth wide and show a terrified expression before he was instantly destroyed to the extent of disintegrating into ashes by this big explosion. A Grade 1 Supreme God had died just like that before the battle had even begun, but it had already ended. Not far away, Elzem had avoided the misfortune of death because he was relatively far away. However, he had also vomited purple blood from the impact of the explosion. It was obvious that he had suffered considerable injuries. He looked at Solomon, who had already fallen, and his pupils constricted slightly. Clearly, he did not expect that Solomon, who had just strutted around proudly and was proud of becoming the city lord, would die in front of him. However, it was not the time to think about this. Without any hesitation, he flew into the sky and shouted, "All ultimate void god spirits of Sava city, listen up. Solomon has fallen." The triple golden cudgel also exploded under his failed operation. It can't be any worse now. Our Sava city has already lost all its defensive capabilities. Only us ultimate void god spirits are left. However, we can't defeat the Supreme Lord's reserve army at all with the number of our god spirits. Everyone, let's surrender. The city lord of Sava city has already surrendered. Why should we soldiers persist? Only by surrendering can we have a chance of survival. We'll die if we don't surrender. As soon as he finished speaking, many ultimate void god spirits, true god tiers, and even master god tiers began to curse him as a traitor. Some even ignored the difference in class and directly attacked him. Elzem was not surprised at all towards this. The ultimate void god spirits under the Void Emperor were very loyal to the Void Emperor. Even if they encountered a choice that concerned their lives, many ultimate void god spirits were willing to persist in offering their faith to the Void Emperor, even if the price was their deaths. Therefore, facing the attacks of these god spirits of the same race, Elzem did not hesitate to choose to attack and kill all these ultimate void god spirits who dared to attack him, a supreme god. Now that he was the only supreme god left in Sava city, he was naturally not afraid of their attacks. In order to quickly resolve the current battlefield, he had to use thunderous means to eliminate these clansmen who opposed his idea. Only then could he quickly end this war. The effect was also very obvious. The voices opposing he on the battlefield became much softer after consecutively killing 50 to 60 ultimate void master god tiers and 1,000 true god tiers and god spirits. No god spirits dared to attack him again. At this moment, the army of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and Lord of 10,000 Evils had already descended from the sky and charged into the blasted city of Savas. Those who resist will be killed without mercy. Those who surrender will not be killed. Bai Yun said coldly. Seeing this, Elzem hurriedly hastened to persuade these ultimate void god spirits to surrender to the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Under such circumstances, even though most of the ultimate void god spirits were still unmoved, a small portion of them had already begun to waver. However, Bai Yun did not have that much patience. They still had to go to Wanlong City and completely conquer the territories of the Wanlong War after conquering Sava City. How could they have the time to dawdle with they here? Moreover, in such a situation, those who were still hesitating and unable to see the situation clearly were not qualified to be soldiers of their Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Kill! Bai Yun said coldly. Then, she picked up the bow and pulled the arrow. Furthermore, there were a total of 9 Master God Tier Advanced Grade silver arrows on the bow. These arrows were all consumables. The cost of each 10 arrows was as high as 1 Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals. It could be seen how expensive the cost was. However, there was no choice. The Grade 3 Supreme God Realm inheritance that His Majesty had bestowed upon he came from a 9-arrow Supreme God known as 9 Arrows. Moreover, the strength of the inheritance of the Supreme God of the 9 Arrows was that apart from his top archery skills, he had all kinds of expensive arrows. This was also one of the reasons for his strength. Therefore, he could not save on the arrows. Otherwise, he would not be able to unleash the power of this Supreme God's inheritance. Fortunately, Bai Yun was also very rich, so it was not a problem for her to buy the materials to forge the arrow branches. speaking of which. Bai Yun picked up the bow and pulled the arrow. In just an instant, the 9 arrows on the bow shot out in unison. Moreover, the moment they shot out, the 9 arrows transformed into 81, 729, 729, 65, 61. In almost an instant, these 9 silver arrows became 531,444 arrows. These 500,000 arrows rained down on these ultimate void god spirits. Moreover, every arrow could accurately kill a god spirit. The most amazing thing was that these 500,000 arrows seemed to have an automatic targeting system. Not a single arrow would repeatedly hit the same enemy. The result was, Bai Yun's arrow had caused the deaths of 531,444 god spirits under the shocked gazes of the god spirits. No one who was hit by the arrow survived. When Bai Yun saw this scene, a faint smile appeared on her face. Then, she exhaled lightly and retracted her arrow. When Bai Yun saw this scene, a faint smile appeared on her face. Then, she exhaled lightly and retracted her arrow. However, the power of the 9-arrow Supreme God was displayed at this moment. In less than a breath, Bai Yun realized that her divine power had recovered by about 1%. Which meant, she only needed to wait for 50 seconds on the spot to replenish her divine power before shooting out the arrow. It could be seen how powerful this inheritance was. And Bai Yun's arrow seemed to have aroused the passion of the Divine Kingdom's army and Lord of 10,000 Evil's army. The armies of both sides entered the battlefield and began to eliminate the ultimate void god spirits who were unwilling to surrender. In less than 2 hours, about 80% of the ultimate void god spirits in Solomon City had died. The remaining 20% were ultimate void god spirits who were willing to join the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and thus had their lives spared. Zhou Feit nodded slightly when he saw this. The war in Solomon City was finally over. Next was the biggest tough nut to crack in this war zone, Wanlong City. The entire territory of the Wanlong War could return to the embrace of their supreme will after taking down the main city of Wanlong. That would be a milestone. At the same time, it was a magnificent feat that Lord of 10,000 Evils and the others didn't even dare to think about in the past. Chapter 1507, Two Worship Supreme Gods. Capture Sava City. 1. What a show! The Lord of 10,000 Evils was stunned and the triple golden cudgel exploded. When Sava City was completely captured, he came back to his senses and exclaimed in amazement. He looked at Zhou Feit beside him with unconcealable envy in his eyes. 2 days. This newly appointed Supreme Lord had only been in the Ultimate Void battleground for 2 days, but he had already conquered a Grade 1 Ultimate Void base and a Grade 2 Ultimate Void base. This was the first great victory for their supreme willpower in 1,000 years. It was also a victory that Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't even dare to think about in the past. However, this new Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army had done it as soon as they arrived. This made he feel awkward. At the same time, he was certain of something. It was not without reason that the Supreme will sent this common people's regal here. They could indeed give them the best victory against the Ultimate Void clan. At the same time, he looked down at the half-ruined Sava City and couldn't help but feel happy. Being able to personally witness and participate in this matter was something that he felt very good about. This was because he hadn't won a battle in a long time. Even though the victory in front of him didn't have much to do with him, since him was participating, it meant that him was related. Even if him was only participating, he could still raise his head slightly in front of the Supreme Will. Perhaps this brother common people's regal of mine can really drive the Ultimate Void race out of the Ultimate Void battleground in the future and let the Ultimate Void battleground return to our hands. This thought suddenly appeared in Lord of 10,000 Evil's mind. Then, he hurriedly shook his head. It had only been 2 victories. How could he have thought so far ahead? He couldn't be arrogant. He couldn't be arrogant. Right at that moment, Savas brought an ultimate void god spirit to Zhou fight from afar. This ultimate void god spirit was Elzem. Your Majesty. This friend of mine is willing to surrender. What he said just now was just to prevent Solomon, who is already dead, from becoming suspicious. Savas introduced and pleaded for Elzem at the same time. Greetings, common people's regal Your Excellency Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army. Savas said respectfully and nervously. Zhou Fight looked at the ultimate void supreme god who had just joined them. He suddenly said, "Did you really just say that so that Solomon wouldn't get suspicious?" When Elzem heard this, his expression suddenly changed, and his eyes revealed fear and panic. Savas' expression also changed. Your Excellency. I really just wanted to make Solomon not suspect anything. In that situation, Solomon wouldn't have kept me if I had the slightest intention of seeking refuge with City Lord Savas. I could only say those words in order to protect myself and later seek refuge with City Lord Savas. Elzem knelt on the ground and said in a panic. Savas did not say anything. He just stood at the side and looked at Elzem in silence. Lord of 10,000 Evils watched this scene with a faint smile. After an unknown period of time. All right, get up. Zhou Fight suddenly said. Then, he stood up and smiled at him. Welcome to the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. From today onwards, you are this Emperor's Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's 2nd Supreme God Consecrator after Savas. Thank you, Your Majesty. Elzem is willing to die for Your Majesty. Elzem said respectfully. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. Zhou Fight chatted with Elzem for a while more before letting Savas leave with him. Just as Savas and Elzem left, Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and cupped his fists in congratulations. Congratulations to Brother Common People's Regal for obtaining another Supreme God subordinate. There was unconcealable envy in his eyes. This was a genuine subordinate of a Supreme God. Even if he was only a Grade 1 Supreme God, he was still a top-notch expert in the myriad worlds. In this ultimate void battleground, he was also a top-notch existence, second only to the first group of willpower-level experts. Such an expert was easily obtained by Zhou Fight. How could he not be envious? He had spent a lot of effort to summon or personally nurture these supreme gods even though he had many supreme gods under his command. The amount of effort, energy, and price spent was not something that ordinary people could imagine. Even, he didn't want to experience it again. Now that, he saw that Zhou Fight had actually obtained 2 supreme gods so easily in 2 days, and one of them was even a level 2 supreme god, he even felt a little sour in his heart. I didn't expect to get a subordinate of a supreme god. Zhou Fight said with a smile. He originally thought that he still needed to rely on the Son of Destiny to instigate Insight Defection to become the 2nd Supreme God subordinate. He did not expect to obtain one with just Savas' words. It was a pleasant surprise. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and said, "That guy's guilty look was interesting. It's a small matter. I wouldn't be much better than him if I were in his shoes. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he thought in the past as long as he is willing to submit to me. No one is perfect when it comes to matters, not the heart." Zhou Fight shook his head. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded in agreement. A moment later, Bai Yun came over and told Zhou Fight that they had found Solomon City's base star core under Savas' lead. Chapter 1508, 2 Worship Supreme Gods. Capture Savas City. 2, Editor, Atlas Studios. Upon hearing this, Zhou Fight followed Bai Yun and flew to the front of the base star core. He looked at the base star core and a text notification appeared. Base name, Savas City, Grade 2 Supreme God Base, Treasure Name, Void Base Star Core, Polluted, Treasure Grade, Grade 2 Supreme God, Treasure Effect. It can become the core of the base after determining the location of the base. With the base star core as the center, it can create any kind of base and add any buildings. At the same time, it can monitor all life forms within a radius of 100 million light-years. Note 1, this base star core is a polluted void base star core. You can purify it with 1 million military credits and restore it to its original appearance and effect. Note 2, if you fuse 3 Grade 2 Supreme God Base Star Cores or Void Base Star Cores, you can evolve them into Grade 3 Supreme God Base Star Cores or Grade 3 Supreme God Void Base Star Cores. Prompt, Purify and Occupy. Obviously, Solomon had not had the time to change the name of the base since he had only occupied Sava City for a short period of time. He could be considered the Void Base City Lord who had been in office for the shortest time. Zhou Fight nodded after reading the message. As expected of a Grade 2 base star core, its surveillance range doubled. Occupy first. He didn't think too much about it and said directly. He no longer had any points in his hands, so he naturally could not purify it. Soon, a text notification appeared. Congratulations, you have successfully occupied Sava City, Grade 2 Supreme God Level War Base. Please name your war base and choose the form of your base. When Zhou Fight saw this, he did not hesitate and directly replied, the war base is named the Blazing Sun Base Planet No. 2. Base form selects planet. He was quite used to the base form of the planet. Once the name and base form are determined, a quest notification appeared. Mission notification, congratulations, Lord of the Blazing Sun. You have successfully conquered Sava City and eliminated or conquered the Void Great General Solomon, Grade 1 Supreme God, Void Great General Elzum, Grade 1 Supreme God, and Void Great General Savas, Grade 2 Supreme God. Reward, 6 million military merits and 3 Supreme God Realm Mission Medals. Seeing this, Zhou Fight opened his mission panel. User, Lord of the Blazing Sun, Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, Ultimate Void Battleground, the second leader of the Supreme Will Camp, Military Merit, 6 million points Mission Medal, 3 Supreme God Realm Mission Medals. Zhou Fight nodded in satisfaction. He could cleanse it now. Purify the base star core. He said. 2 more lines of text appeared. In the process of purification, congratulations, you have successfully purified the Void Base Star Core. Only then did Zhou Fight look at the information of the new base. Base name, Blazing Sun Base Planet No. 2, Grade 2 Supreme God Base, Treasure Name, Supreme Base Star Core, Treasure Grade, Grade 2 Supreme God, Treasure Effect. It can become the core of the base after determining the location of the base. With the base star core as the center, it can create any kind of base and add any buildings. At the same time, it can monitor all life forms within a radius of 100 million light-years. Note 1, if you fuse 3 Grade 2 Supreme God Base Star Cores or Void Base Star Cores, you can evolve them into Grade 3 Supreme God Realm Base Star Cores. Zhou Fight nodded slightly after reading it. This was the only way to take this Grade 2 Supreme God level base under his control. He turned to look at Lord of 10,000 Evils and said, Brother Demon Lord, let's rest for an hour before heading to the main city of Wanlong. What's the rush? The Lord of 10,000 Evils asked in surprise. He felt that the results of today's battle were enough to go back and celebrate. We can't waste this opportunity. Zhou Fight shook his head. Of course, most importantly, he hadn't used the Sun of Destiny today. He wanted to use it on the enemy of Wanlong City. When the time came, he would definitely gain a lot. Okay. The Lord of 10,000 Evils agreed after some thought. The common people's regal made sense. Moreover, He also wanted to see how far this brother common people's regal could go. If he could really subdue the entire territory of Wanlong in 2 days. The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't dare to imagine how excited he would be. Perhaps even the Supreme Will would personally inquire after finding out about such a result. Zhou Feit nodded. By the way, I'll go with you, but aren't we going to do anything about this place? Aren't we going to leave some garrison or something? The Lord of 10,000 Evils suddenly thought of this and hurriedly asked. After today's battle, Sava City has already been reduced to half a ruin. Even the Supreme God-level defense facilities have been shattered by us. There's nothing to guard here. Even if this place is snatched back when we're not around, we can directly snatch it back. The Ultimate Void clan wouldn't do such a thing if they weren't stupid. We can go to Wanlong City without worry. Zhou Feit said. You're right. Lord of 10,000 Evils thought for a moment and nodded. They should have sent someone to guard this place if the triple golden cudgel hadn't been broken and they had obtained it. However, the triple golden cudgel had already been broken. If he wanted to send people to defend it forcefully, he would definitely have to expend a lot of manpower and resources. Even so, he might not be able to defend Blazing Sun base planet No. 2 without Supreme God-level defense facilities. They were about to attack the main city of Wanlong, so it was indeed not appropriate for them to disperse their troops and do such things to weaken their strength. Right at that moment, Bai Yun walked over and brought along a world ring. Reporting to your majesty, we have collected all the fragments of the 3 gold coins and placed them in this world ring. Bai Yun said respectfully. Zhou Feit nodded and extended his will into it. Then, he couldn't help but click his tongue. This was because the world ring was densely packed with tens of thousands of golden fragments. It was extraordinarily difficult to repair. However, Zhou Feit valued its defense very much. It would be good to use it as a defensive structure for a base city in the Ultimate Void battleground even if he didn't use it as a defensive structure for the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. In the myriad worlds, excluding willpower level powerhouses, I'm afraid the only one who can repair these 3 gold coins is the Supreme God who created them. Zhou Feit thought to himself. The Supreme God who created it was obsessed with artifacts. He was obsessed with creating all kinds of divine artifacts. Even creating a supreme divine artifact was not difficult for the Supreme God who created it. In fact, in the myriad worlds, most of the Supreme God divine artifacts in the hands of the more than 10,000 Supreme Gods were personally created by the Supreme God Creator. From this, one could see the other party's terrifying prestige and strength in the Tao of Crafts. I'll find a channel to meet the Supreme God of Creation. General Zhou began to talk about the world rings. Then, he exchanged information about Wanlong City with Bai Yun and the other generals. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was also participating, so Zhou Feit and the others naturally did not refuse. They could still be considered allies at that moment after all. More than half an hour later, Zhou Feit and Lord of 10,000 Evil soldiers had finished resting. Zhou Feit did not waste any time. He immediately got the soldiers to rush to Wanlong City. He and Lord of 10,000 Evils sat on their dragon god mounts and took the lead to Wanlong City. Wanlong City was not far from Sava City. Hence, in just over an hour, Zhou Feit, Lord of 10,000 Evils, and both armies arrived at a location not far from Wanlong City. They looked from afar and saw a huge city that was 10 times larger than Sava City standing in the void. This Wanlong City was comparable to the total territory of hundreds of boundless universes based on its size alone. The Divine Kingdom stars that emitted various nomological rays decorated it, looking both magnificent and vast. At the same time, Zhou Feit and the rest also noticed. These Divine Kingdom stars of various sizes seemed to have a mysterious connection with each other. They vaguely formed an incomparably huge and mysterious Divine Kingdom star array that protected the vast void city below the Divine Kingdom stars. Chapter 1509, Traitor. Editor, Atlas Studios, as expected of a Grade 3 Supreme God Realm Void base. Zhou Feit looked at the majestic city and could not help but sigh. However, the Lord of 10,000 Evils had a solemn expression and didn't say anything. He had been the leader of the ultimate void battleground for so many years, so he understood the power of Wanlong City the best. It was no exaggeration to say that even if the number of supreme gods under him multiplied by 5 or 6 times, it was still impossible to forcefully break through the main city of Wanlong. Unless the number of supreme gods under his command increased tenfold, it would be impossible to break through the main city of Wanlong. However, that was obviously impossible. He looked at Zhou Feit. This brother of the common people's regal had been very calm along the way. Next, he would let he see where the confidence that made him so confident came from. At this moment, ha 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 ha, a hoarse and arrogant laugh sounded. Then, he heard more and more laughter. At the same time, there were more and more types of voices, and they came from all directions. Then, as the expressions of Lord of 10,000 Evils and the other god spirits changed drastically, they saw ultimate void god spirits appear in the ultimate void around Lord of 10,000 Evils' army and the army of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. There were more than 50 billion of them. Moreover, the number of supreme gods and god spirits that could be sensed by the will was as many as 20. They looked arrogantly at Lord of 10,000 Evils and Zhou Zhan, as if they were looking at a group of dead people. In addition, various supreme god-level war machines, war treasures, military formations, and other powerful things were also densely placed in the army. They were accumulating energy, and when they finished accumulating energy, they could release their world-shaking destructive power. This scene immediately made Lord of 10,000 Evils' expression turn ugly. How could he not understand that he had fallen into a trap? However, what puzzled him was how the other party knew exactly when and where they had arrived. It was as if they had long known that they would appear here. At the same time, the Flame Duke Supreme God, who was among the 7 supreme gods under Lord of 10,000 Evils, looked at the ultimate void god spirits that filled the sky and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Then, he regained his calmness. Even his supreme god colleagues did not notice the slight change in his expression. Yet, Zhou Feit noticed. Or rather, he had long begun to pay attention to the Flame Duke Supreme God who had helped him out yesterday. Brother Demon Lord. I feel that there's something wrong with you, the Supreme God. Zhou Feit secretly transmitted his voice to Lord of 10,000 Evils and pointed at the Flame Duke Supreme God. Lord of 10,000 Evils, who was already sensitive at this moment, immediately had a slight change in expression. Common people's regal, what do you mean? You suspect that my supreme god is a traitor who leaked our war plan, which is why we are surrounded here. You need evidence to say that. What evidence do you have? I don't have any evidence, and I don't have the time to find so-called evidence for Brother Demon Lord. Let me ask you, Brother Demon Lord. Do you think that at this moment, I will frame the Supreme God beside you for no reason and cause our side to lose an important combat power? Do you believe me? This goal was personally told to him by the Supreme Will before he came. Then, he quickly took a deep breath and stared into Zhou Feit's eyes. I believe you. Both he and Zhou Zhan were Supreme Lord reserves personally selected by the Supreme Will. Anyone under he could betray he and become a traitor of the ultimate void race, but Zhou Feit would definitely not. Otherwise, wouldn't that prove that the Supreme Will's judgment was poor? He could even choose a traitor. No matter how stupid Lord of 10,000 Evils was, he wasn't stupid enough to think that the Supreme Will's judgment would be that bad. What Zhou Feit said at this moment was indeed not necessary to lie to him. What do you want to do? Let's capture him first. Don't let this traitor suddenly attack us in secret. Sure. With complicated thoughts, Lord of 10,000 Evils secretly informed the other 6 supreme gods under his command to work together with the 2 supreme gods under Zhou fight to take down the traitor Flame Duke Supreme God. When the 6 supreme gods heard that the Flame Duke Supreme God, who usually had a good personality, was actually a traitor, they were instantly shocked. However, they also knew that this was not the time to hesitate and agreed immediately. These 6 supreme gods, Savas and Elzum, a total of 8 supreme gods, silently surrounded the Flame Duke Supreme God. However, because the Flame Duke Supreme God was already guilty and cautious, no matter how careful these 8 supreme gods were, they were still noticed by the Flame Duke Supreme God. He immediately became extremely vigilant. Why did these 8 fellows suddenly move at the same time and even indistinctly approach him? It was a matter of life and death. When the Flame Duke Supreme God realized this, he could not help but start to think too much. After only thinking for a second, the Flame Duke Supreme God made a decisive decision. He immediately turned into a fiery light and flew towards the Ultimate Void Race's army. This action caused the expressions of the 8 supreme gods surrounding the Flame Duke Supreme God to change. At the same time, it also made Lord of 10,000 Evils' expression turn extremely ugly. There was actually a traitor among his supreme god worshippers. There was actually a traitor among his supreme god worshippers. He could not help but be furious. He couldn't imagine how much information his good subordinate had leaked to the Ultimate Void Race over the years. It was no wonder that every time he engaged in a large-scale battle with the Ultimate Void Race and wanted to launch a sneak attack on them, he would always fail because the other party was fully prepared. At first, he only felt that the Ultimate Void Race was very cautious when facing a Supreme Lord Reserve. Only now did he react. How was this the other party being cautious? It was obvious that the other party had long known of their sneak attack plan and calmly made preparations. Flame Duke, Lord of 10,000 Evils, couldn't help but grit his teeth. The more he cherished this subordinate of the Supreme God, the more he hated this subordinate of the Supreme God now. Right now, he even wished that he could personally tear the other party into pieces. At the same time, just as the Flame Duke Supreme God was about to charge out of the encirclement of the army and fly towards the Ultimate Void Race's God Spirit army, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the Flame Duke Supreme God. It was Saras. At this moment, Saras was wearing silver-gray Supreme God armor that exuded the might of a Supreme God and holding a silver-gray feather fan. Let's go back. He held the silver-gray feather fan and waved it gently at the Flame Duke Supreme God. In the next moment, the endless violent storm suddenly rolled up and swept fiercely onto the Flame Duke Supreme God. Under the interweaving influence of the power of space and time, plus the Flame Duke Supreme God didn't expect Saras to have such a method. Caught off guard, he directly appeared where he was a second ago. Even though it was only a second ago, it had only been less than 2 seconds since the Flame Duke Supreme God escaped and was blown back. Therefore, when the Flame Duke Supreme God came back to his senses, he suddenly realized that he had already fallen into the encirclement of the other 7 Supreme Gods. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.